And welcome to the 28th Mount Carmel Memorial on this April 19th, 2021. It's hard to believe that it was 28 years ago that saw a series of events take place that would shine a light on the arrogance and abuse of power that led the BATF and the FBI to completely destroy a religious community, affecting thousands of lives and changing the very fabric of the United States of America. And I welcome you here. I'm very glad and feel very blessed that all of you could attend. I know that there are several things that I'm going to forget to say. So before I read the prepared speech that I made, I'd like to just kind of bring everyone up to date with some of the things that have happened over the course of the last year. I believe it was last year. I'm sorry, I do not have the dates prepared. We lost Ramsey Clark, who was one of the attorneys in the civil case. He was a U.S. Attorney General, and helped with the civil case. He was the head attorney. Ramsey was a piece of history, living piece of history. So it was an honor to have had the opportunity to get to know him. He passed last year. Kevin Whitecliff, one of the survivors, the individual that I spoke to right after the attack, who was, when he still had so much adrenaline pumping, he was yelling and screaming that he was out at the back of the building and he saw the helicopters coming and shooting. He indicated that he saw the helicopters shoot at Peter, Gent, and kill him, and that he was convinced the helicopters fired first. And I've always said over the course of the last several years that anyone at the front door believed that the first shots were fired by the agent shooting into the building. And anyone at the back, and by anyone I mean Kevin, because that is the individual I directly talked to, believed that the first shots were fired by the helicopters literally coming in. So that's something that I've always believed and will always counter and will stand by to the day I die, is that the helicopters were firing into the building. And recently I spent a lot of time on YouTube listening to different testimonies of different historical events. And there's one individual, I'm not even going to mention his name, but he puts together top 10 lists, and he did a thing on Waco. And he said that the helicopters were not firing. So there's still people out there that believe the government's story that the helicopters did not fire at the building. I just can't say it enough. The illegality of the helicopter shooting into the building, the fact that we had children come out that did paintings, representations of the house, and then put little holes, dots in the roof of the building. So even the kids' testimonies indicated that the helicopters are firing into the building. So Kevin Whitecliff died last year. I'm not sure where, but it had something to do with an accident with a gas truck. It was my understanding that he was driving. So it was sad to lose Kevin. I never actually had the opportunity to talk to Kevin since he got out of jail, and I live to regret that. We did have the opportunity this last year to talk to Derek Lovelock, who was one of the survivors and should be on this call at some point from England. He's been invited, and I had a long conversation with him not too long ago. So I was very happy about that. I know that there's something I'm forgetting. Ron, is there anything that you can think of news-wise?
Can I ask you a quick question, Tibbs?
Sure.
On that subject there, Kevin Whitecliff, exactly who was that individual?
Kevin was a member of the group. He was one of the guys that was at the back of the building during the BATF attack. He came out during the siege at some point and went to jail for several years.
Okay, he was not one of the ones that was with Mike coming from the mechanic shop, correct?
No, he was there in the building at the time. Yeah.
All right.
Sure.
Thank you.
Sure.
David,
yes.
I wanted to just say about Ramsey Clark. Arnold's not here. Catherine and Stuart might have, I think Catherine might have been in 1995 at the American Academy of Religion meeting, which is all the religious studies scholars. There was a huge gathering. It was over 500 people present. and Phil and I passed out copies, free copies of David's manuscript that had survived the fire that we had worked on and printed. And it was in Washington, D.C., of all places. And Attorney Clark, General Clark, I guess they say, was there with us the whole weekend. We spent a lot of time with them, but he was there at the meeting. So I just wanted to mention that to all of you who may not have known Ramsey Clark. He did many, many things for the cause of justice. You know, he was Attorney General under John F. Kennedy, but he was there at our meeting and took a tremendous interest in this in terms of a civil liberties and case. So thank you for mentioning him, David. I just wanted to add that.
No, I'm glad. And on Netflix, there's recently a series about the Chicago 7 and the events that happened with those political activists and how Ramsey Clark actually played an integral role in their in the trials that occurred in Chicago. You can watch that for yourself. But yeah, Ramsey was literally a living part of American history. So, you know, it was definitely a loss.
Hey, David, can I jump in and say something?
Absolutely.
I got to know Ramsey represented a couple of the survivors or families of survivors in the civil suit against the government, we brought against the government in 2000 in Waco. So I got to know him there. Later visited his offices in New York, which actually weren't that far from the trade towers that went down in that part of the city. But he was a great guy. He was actually the AG under LBJ rather than Kennedy.
Okay, you're right. Yeah, you got me there.
Think about this. He helped engineer the Civil Rights Act, 1964, and the Voting Rights Act in 1965, and was taking the lead on the Great Society program that was tackling poverty during the LBJ years. So he's left quite a legacy himself. He'll be missed. He's a great guy.
Thank you, Stuart. I should have remembered Bobby Kennedy was Attorney General under Kennedy. So thank you.
Thanks for being here, Stuart, by the way.
Sure.
I can't tell each and every one of you how often I mention Stuart Wright's name when I'm talking to people and on podcasts, and how I encourage people that go to the Waco Survivors website to please do themselves a favor and go to the Stuart Wright section and read everything he has written of the critical analysis of the FBI actions. And they always comment on how much they learned from Stuart's writing. So I'm very, very proud to have you here today, Stuart. Thank you for attending.
Bet.
So let's do this. I'm going to read a written statement that I prepared, and then we'll open it up to James Tabor has some things to say. Catherine Wessinger. Let's see. We also had who else is going to speak today? Ryan Azevedo, my friend Ryan, who isn't on the call yet. So perhaps we can twist Stuart's arm and see if he can say a couple words for us today. That might be nice. Hey, there's Clive, by the way. Hi, Clive. Clive Doyle.
Hi, Clive.
Not doing too good, actually. A little shaky today, but otherwise we're okay.
Good to see you. So, every day for 51 days on live television, America was overwhelmed with propaganda and negative conditioning that attempted to change and control the very thoughts and actions of the entire population. Much like a bully on the playground, this was the same spirit used by the federal government to justify a raid that had over 75 armed agents dressed in black and 3 helicopters shooting blindly into a building filled with men, women, and children on February 28th, 1993. For over 45 minutes, the madness went on and on. The BATF only stopped to negotiate a ceasefire after they had run out of bullets. In contrast, Wayne Martin, a local attorney and member who was inside Mount Carmel that day, called 911 and begged for a ceasefire just after the first shots pierced the front door and killed the 5 dogs that were penned up at the front of the building. BATF had no communication with the sheriff's department or emergency services and had to use a local press agent's phone to negotiate a ceasefire, again after they had run out of bullets. Perry Jones, Peter Hipsman, Peter Gent, J.D. Wendell, Winston Blake, and Michael Schroeder were the members who lost their lives on the first day, February 28th, 1993. Their names will be included in the slideshow memorial that is to follow. All of the other individuals that were killed on April 28th will be honored around the noon hour at the time the fire began 28 years ago today. This is the one time every year that we come together to honor those who had the faith and courage to stand and to die for what they believed in. Against unsurmountable odds for 51 days, the individuals of Mount Carmel stood up to the oppressors that daily tried to provoke, taunt, and demonize them through their lapdogs, the media. Yes, many lies and much blood are laid at the feet of the US media as well as their editors and the decision makers that gave orders from comfortable offices in Washington, D.C. David used to say often that all will come out in the wash. Every step of the way, it was the government agents and leaders that were the aggressors. From the BATF attack, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms attack, through the siege to the setting up of loud, torturous sounds, causing stress and sleep deprivation, the real child abuse was the military equipment that buzzed the house, destroyed the property, and ran over Peter Gent's grave at the front of the building. All acts of aggression perpetrated to elicit a violent response from the people of Mount Carmel, who at no time during the siege fired at the agents or shot out the loudspeakers. They showed ultimate discipline so they would not escalate the situation. From the CS gassing of children, the real child abuse, to the destruction of the building by the tanks and their meaningless assurances that this is not an assault. We are not entering the building as the tank comes through the front door. None of us can hide the truth of our actions. You reap what you sow, and you only have one lifetime to repent and confess what you have done. You agents are running out of time. You agents of the BATF and the FBI, you're running out of time. And I'm going to encourage you now to unburden your soul and tell the truth. Bear witness to what you have done and confess it to your fellow countrymen. Some men living know who the individuals are that were shooting at the back of the building, who made the decision to use pyrotechnic devices that final day. Many of you hold secrets. I appeal you to confess them before it is too late for you. It's your only hope. I beg you to come forward now, before your time runs out. It is now that the US government needs to admit what they did, apologize, and consider what steps need to be taken to move forward. Do the right thing. Confess and start to heal this nation. This is the first step in bridging the divide between the two sides of this broken country. I want to close by saying it was through incredible faith that the martyrs of Mount Carmel showed the entire world that the word of God is more powerful than any bullet, tank, gas canister, or helicopter. They chose God over their oppressors, who commanded them to do the impossible and come out to a hostile force that had already done so much damage to their reputations and property, including the very destruction of their home. Who would want to come out to such a system of corruption, and what kind of life would be hoped for? The people of Mount Carmel will live forever. Their names and their memories will live on long after we were all gone. Even their enemies stand in awe of what courage and sacrifice they made for the God of Israel and for their own community. I personally stand in awe of the sacrifice they made, as I know that all of the other survivors stand in solidarity with me and with them. I wanted to end by saying, God bless you all that hear these words, and pray for this troubled nation with me over the course of the next days, weeks, and months to come. I hope that this nation sees the error of its ways. If we as a people do not put justice and love first, then we will fail. The world is watching. Please treat your fellow man as you wish to be treated. It's that easy. Demand justice, but don't lower yourself to violence. Be better. Be better than the system that destroyed Mount Carmel and killed all those beautiful people.
That was beautiful, Mr. Thibodeaux.
Thank you.
Amen.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, amen.
So that's my message. Who's next?
That was well done, David.
That's a tough one to follow, sir.
Thank you, David. That was,
Good job, David.
Thank you.
Well, I would add just one thing on what David touched on earlier about the, and Kevin Whitecliff's testimony about the helicopters. Attorney David Hardy did have a clip of several clips of video shot from the helicopters on February 28th, one of which on the audio, you can clearly hear gunfire from the helicopter, because there's no way you would have heard gunfire from the ground on the cameras on the helicopter. So you do hear what sounds like semi-automatic fire from, a handheld firearm, rifle, MP5, something like that. So I think there's pretty good evidence to document that, in addition to testimony, that guns were fired from the helicopter.
I wanted to add to that. If I've listened to most of the tapes, I think Arnold has actually listened to all 51 days of the so-called negotiation tapes. I've listened to many of them. I know Catherine and a lot of you have. But as I recall, David Koresh got really angry probably 3 different times. I mean, like beyond belief angry. And the first time was what you were just talking about, Roland, when he's talking to the agent, BATF agent, who's denying the shooting, and he just loses it. I won't try to reproduce it, but you've all heard it. And finally the agent said, well, we might have been shooting, but not fully automatic. Like, oh, just AK-47s then, semi-auto. I mean, it was just, anyway. I want you guys to keep talking when I do want to make an announcement at some point, David, if you want me to do it a little later, but I wanted Catherine to make me a host if she would, so that I can share my screen just for about 2 minutes. So
That's a good segue into James giving us his time now.
So in the chat, I'm going to post the link that I'm showing you now. It's a YouTube link. And I'll give you the background first before I share it. Before COVID, we have BC, right? And I hope we have AC someday. But BC, before COVID, Phil Arnold in Houston, Texas, who runs a nonprofit called Reunion, he contacted Stuart Wright and Catherine Wessinger and me and asked if we would come down at his expense to Houston and spend a couple of days doing a interview around a table, the 4 of us, in which we would address the question, what have we learned from Waco over the past, it would be over 25 years. And so it's on YouTube now. I want to thank Catherine for breaking it into segments. It's 3 hours, but then it can be used in classes and with people. You can post portions of it. It's free and open. Catherine spent hours writing a little commentary to it as well. So you can actually look and see an index of what you want to watch. At the end, it has David teaching the book of Daniel and also singing, or not the book of Daniel, book of Revelation, the seals, and also singing his song, the book of Daniel. It's beautifully done. Phil wouldn't want me to say this, but he paid many, many thousands of dollars to have this done. This is not a couple of us throwing a camera up. It's really, really well produced, meaning when I'm talking and then it moves to something else, it's, you know, it had multiple cameras in a studio and then was professionally edited. I think content-wise, it contains the most up-to-date information, at least from the standpoint of the four of us that have spent over 25 years trying to study and understand what happened and to know some of you and so forth. So if I'm able, I was just going to show you, looks like I am. So let me share this screen with you. This is the YouTube video. Can everybody see that just for a second? I just want you to, will they be able to hear the sound? Wait just a second, Catherine, sorry. I think I have to enable. Sorry to fumble around here. After teaching all these months, I should know how to do this. Let's see. Internal speakers. Yeah, let me just try that. If you can't hear it, you'll still see the idea. I just wanted you to.
I wouldn't worry about the fumbling, Tabor. We've never been known to do these things politically or perfectly correct here.
Can you hear it? Can you hear it okay?
Yes, sir, we can.
We're surrounded by American law enforcement, the ATF and the FBI. 51 days later, 86 people were dead. Lives were ruined. American history was changed. My name is James Philip Arnold with the Reunion Institute. I'm here today with 3 other scholars who have studied the Waco events, and we're going to have a discussion on exactly why this happened. Could it have been prevented, so that you will understand this event better and better?
Wow, that's awesome.
You will absolutely, you can hear me, right? Still?
Mm-hmm.
You'll
Yes.
love it. It's painful, it's wonderful, it's informative. And the title is really truthful. What have we learned and not learned? And we're talking about we collectively as a culture. There are some things we learned. We even say a couple of good things about some good FBI people at the end. I also put a blog post up. Can you see that? Everybody see that?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And if you go, it's jamestabor.com. It's up today. It has a lot more links, and it also has the breakdown of all the segments. Catherine, is this also on the channel? You'll see, you just pick the one you want. But if you want to take a look at this too, that would be possible. So I gave you the URL, and I'll put the blog post as well, because it has, some of you might not know, but Malcolm Gladwell, who is very, very prominent, he writes for the New Yorker, probably the most prominent person to write on Waco ever. And I put the link to his article from 2014. It's a really outstanding article. He's the only media person that I've ever seen in print media, not scholar, and some of you people who are very familiar with it, but as a mass media person, I mean, we're talking about the New Yorker, and Malcolm got it right. It's called How Not to Negotiate.
Right, right, definitely.
It's an absolutely wonderful article. If you don't know it, you can Google it on the New Yorker, it's available, but I would really recommend it. You know, part of our job is to, if you type in Branch Davidian, Waco, David Koresh, anything on YouTube, and YouTube's become the thing, we know that, but you just type that in, you get such a plethora of the good, the bad, and the ugly. Just
True.
awful stuff, wonderful stuff, good stuff, mediocre stuff, errors beyond belief, horrible things, great things. Nobody can sort through it.
True.
Thousands and thousands of videos. And so people are left, my students, I'm teaching Waco next week for a week. They
Oh, wow.
weren't even born. They don't know anything about it.
Right,
Few
right.
from their parents. So what we can do, my message to you would be, since Arnold has done this and Catherine and Stuart, I participated and was edited so wonderfully, take things like this, take things like the Malcolm Gladwell article, and just put it out on Twitter and Facebook and other well-done things that are out there. Stuart has reviewed the films that came out on the 25th anniversary. Stuart, if you could put that in the chat, maybe, if you have that handy, the link. Sad to say, out of the 5 or 6, only the Paramount film that David helped with and the British film, which was it, who did the British film? Now I'm forgetting, but that one was
A&E, I think.
A&E did. Those are the only 2. The others were just horrible. And you'd think after 25 years, it's just, Phil and I interviewed for 2 of them. We spent 2 days and they deleted every single thing we said. They said, well, we're not actually going to do a counterpoint. They just trashed all of our interviews. That was the 2 networks. So we have how many people here? Let's see, 61 people. We have a lot of power right here. So especially, I know people aren't going to watch a 3-hour video, a lot of people, but look at those.
I will.
Good. Look at those segments, and you'll find some segments of that will interest you, you know, broken down. All the questions people ask are in the segments. And I want to thank Minji for editing it for us. I don't know that she's here with us. Wonderful, amazing job. And I will put, Catherine Messenger's YouTube channel. I'll put my blog post just now. But anyway, thank you for your introduction. Your introduction was stunning. I was breathless.
Yeah, that got me emotional.
Me too.
Thank you. And we do need to all of us need to call ourselves to repentance, as well as each other, everybody. Thank you.
Right.
I'd like to list those 2 on the, I'll get with Ed Hart on that, and we'll list it on the Waco Survivors website. Both a link to the 4 scholars speaking, which is phenomenal, and the gentleman from the New York Times you were talking about. Let's get his articles up there too. That'd be the more proper information.
The New Yorker, David.
We can get there. I'd like to have. I'm sorry, James. What did you say?
The New Yorker, not the New York Times.
The New Yorker. Yeah.
Unfortunately, the New York Times has been horrible in Waco.
Sure has.
As you Phil Arnold has joined us, and also my friend Ryan Azevedo is here. We've been working on a documentary, which we'll talk to him soon. I noticed Heather, survivor Heather.
Hi, Heather.
Is on as well.
Hi, Heather.
Very happy to have you here today, Heather.
Hey, Heather.
Phil,
Hi, Heather.
I don't know if you were here, Phil, when I spoke, but I showed everybody a clip of the video that you so graciously underwrote with Reunion and your donors and yourself. And I think we're going to really help this go viral. And with those segments that we have particularly, we can pick things that we think are particularly poignant and and wonderful descriptions, so you actually know what you're looking at. So thank you, Phil.
I'd like you, can we segue into Catherine Wessinger? I know that Catherine wanted to say a few words.
Yeah, I see Allie's had her hand up. Do you want to say something, Allie, before I make a short announcement?
Yeah, I actually had kind of a quick, like a thank you, I guess, if that's okay for me to say to the group. I wrote it down because I'm not the best speaker in the world. I'm working on it, but I just kind of wrote this down. And I said, I guess the first thing I want to say is thank you, not just for letting people like me who weren't even born during the tragedy, but who feel the sting of injustice come here and pay our respects. But I also want to thank those of you who are survivors just for being open and real about what happened. You are incredibly brave people. Y'all inspire me, and I know I'm not alone. Y'all inspire us too. Us as in our little tribe of people who thought, though we are not survivors ourselves, have inherited your heart for humanity and your passion for speaking the truth. We all talk and laugh and learn together all the time over Facebook. And a lot of us are discovering ourselves and who we are in Christ. And let me tell you something, Clive and Ron and all of you who are just in that world. I know y'all have been waiting and afraid that you would never see the level of community and compassion and desire to be closer to the Lord. And oddly enough, it was the internet that brought us together. But the scattered aren't scattered anymore, y'all. It's time that we come and get together, and when we can all see each other and hug each other and laugh and not just be on Zoom, but the waiting is over. We're back to family and love and faith in the Lord during dark times. Waco and Mount Carmel isn't just some place on the map. It's all of us, from Clive's generation to mine, and none of us are perfect, but we're all growing and we're all kind of goofy, but doggone it, we're here now. And Clive, if you ever did worry that you'd never see this live on, you don't have to worry anymore. Just know that a lot of us are going to be reading your book and taking your heed on wisdom on a lot of things, because we got a lot to learn. But yeah, the wait is over, and now's the time of season of unity and love.
Amen, Allie.
Thank you so much,
Hey,
Allie.
Good job, Allie.
So
Great,
guys,
beautiful.
Allie.
Beautiful.
we have
Way to go.
Yeah.
that's beautiful.
Beautiful.
We have two more speakers. We have about 20 minutes left,
Okay.
a little over 20 minutes. And then what I'd like to do is, after the slideshow presentation, for those that want to stick around, we can open it up to questions, and we can really get into some stuff. So that could be fun. Are we gonna have time after the slideshow presentation, Catherine?
Oh, sure. It's up to you. You know, you decide when it's over, okay?
I can
David?
stay all day, so this is great.
All right, all right.
Feel the
But
fellowship. Feel
I
the
just
love
have,
in the room.
excuse me?
I feel the love in the room.
Gotta
Yes.
have the after
Right.
party.
Okay. All right, I just have a quick announcement to make. So I posted the URL for my YouTube channel, and that's the channel where the new film is located that James was talking about. The entire film, which is almost 3 hours long, but also it's divided into segments, so you can watch each part and as you progress through the film, or you can watch selected parts. So it's on my YouTube channel. But before the pandemic, I was interviewing some survivors and also people who are close to the survivors, and survivors gave me wonderful, wonderful interviews. Scott and Heather and Scott's mom, Kat Schroeder, and David Thibodeaux. And people watch these videos on YouTube. They do, because of course I see the statistics of who watches them or how many people are watching them, and they make a difference. And so I just want to announce that this summer I'd like to get back to recording interviews, and I'll use Zoom to do that. And
Can you all please mute if you're not speaking? Can you please mute?
great, thanks. And So anyway, I intend to return to recording interviews if anybody is interested, any survivors, or also anyone who was involved in the case back in '93 or who has studied the case intensively. My contact information is public. My email address is on my bio on my university's on a webpage for myself at my university. So it's easy to get my email address, but at any rate, also on my YouTube channel, you will see the interviews that have been done so far. And lastly, because I upload the interviews as people speak them, I just divide them up into small segments. This is an oral history project. It's not a documentary project. So the person being interviewed gets to say what they want to say. And I know there are good interviews or good documentaries out there, and I know Ryan's working on one. So I'll turn this over to Ryan now.
Yeah, let me introduce Ryan. This gentleman, Ryan Azevedo. I've known this guy since music school back in, was it, oh boy, 88 or 89. We went to Musicians Institute together. And he went on to be an award-winning filmmaker. Well, I went on to play drums for David Koresh. So I had a chance to drive down the California coast a few years ago, and I called Ryan and we met for lunch in LA. I had my daughter and we had this conversation and we were talking about everything. And through that conversation, I just, he was telling me about his film projects, and I just said, why don't you help me make the documentary that should have been made years ago? And I think that you're perfect. And Ryan has not disappointed. And everyone that he has spoken to, he has a way to connect with people on a very deep level and bring out some very, very deep and interesting things in people that I wouldn't have been able to do. And I wanted to get Ryan to say some words today, because this is a man that has spent the last 3 years living Waco every day. And with people like myself and Clive, some of the survivors, you go through your lives, and 28 years is a long time, and it's easy to forget things and it's easy to lose perspective. But here's someone, Ryan, who had a completely secular view of things. The only reason that he didn't fall for all the propaganda is because he knew me and he knew who I was. And so it was hard for him to believe all of that. Anyway, he's probably gone through more documentation and more information about Waco than any of us have in just a short amount of time. So I'd like Ryan to say a few words about what we're trying to do and what his perception is of the people that are no longer with us, from someone who's been studying them.
Thank you, Dave, for that super kind introduction. When Dave and I met, when we were roommates, I think it's safe to say that you were probably the least likely person to move to a religious community out of everybody I knew. But when Dave came back the first time, when I saw him the first time when he came back to LA, there was a noticeable difference. I mean, he seemed happier, he seemed healthier. He just had a sparkle I hadn't seen before. And as we started talking about the film project, and Dave, said more than anything, what he wants to do is tell the truth and make sure that, it's the truth gets out there. Well, there were a lot of things I kind of expect going into a documentary project, but nothing could have prepared me for what I have encountered in meeting everybody on this call and meeting a few people that aren't on this call. My biggest surprise, I think, and I was talking to David about this the other day, was when you start out and you see that, it's this huge tragedy, but then as you start getting more involved, it's not just a huge tragedy, it's an enormous tragedy. And the more you learn, the more tragic it becomes. And the more you learn about people, the more it affects you personally. And I think when it really hit me was one day I was listening to negotiation tapes for I'd been listening to him for maybe six hours, and I turned him off and I started to go about the rest of my day, and I could still hear those negotiation tapes, the sound effects they were playing in the background, the psych ops that they were playing, and it kept playing in my head the rest of the day. And even when I went to sleep that night, it was affecting me. And I was like, my God, this is just me with a few hours of negotiation tapes. I couldn't imagine living that. And it just, you know, really had such an effect on me. And I think that, you know, there's so many people on the call right now. My grandma used to say that stories are how you keep people immortal. Stories, as long as people are telling a story, it's keeping somebody immortal, or it's keeping somebody alive. And, you know, I think there are a lot of people on this call that have dedicated their lives to keeping everybody's story alive. But, you know, it's definitely the scholars that we have on the call have done an amazing job of really capturing not only the stories, but I think the essence of a lot of the people that were here, or that were there. And, you know, I think that the other thing that really surprised me in getting involved is the sense of community. Like, despite all the horrible things that happened, at the end of the day, they could not destroy the community. The community's still there. The community rebounds. And getting the opportunity to meet some of the survivors and just, you know, like some of the strength that all the survivors have shown is just blows my mind. And to go on and to thrive, and to you know, to like Heather, you know, such beautiful kids and such a strong heart and such a sweet spirit. And I don't want to take it away from anybody else, but you know, I guess more than anything, I just want to thank you for letting me be part of the community and for trusting me to help tell the story.
Couldn't have picked a better person, my friend. There's no doubt in my mind about that. By the way, one thing I forgot to mention, Ryan Azevedo has a background and grew up in the Seventh-day Adventist Church, so he has a unique understanding of the foundation of where Koresh came from, and the people of Mount Carmel and what they were studying.
David, I wanted to add that one of the things Ryan's doing is involving people like Dudley Goff, who go back to Hoddif's time.
True, yes.
And was active up till the 59 disappointment, which is the year David was even born. And so he's telling a really what we would call a thick story, a deep story, both chronologically and in every way. And nobody's even approached this. A couple of the videos or have put just a few quick things about, oh, this goes back to the 50s and there was this crazy guy who thought the world was ending. But Dudley Goff, you spent hours with him, and Phil and I also interviewed Dudley, and that's on YouTube. On my, I should give it to Catherine to post too, or some of the rest of you. But I just wanted to add that it's not just 93, but it's really who were these people, and even before, back in the 50s and so forth. So I look forward to seeing you. COVID has kept us apart, Ryan, but it won't be long. So
I'm looking forward to it as well.
So James, you just committed to doing an interview with us? Because I don't see how this story can be told without you.
Well, I would be honored, of course.
I just want to get that publicly. Thank you.
But I'm going to tell about how you went to Israel with me and climbed Masada. The day you arrived, I picked you up at the plane.
It was amazing.
Where 963 Jews died and were besieged by the Romans. And that was really something that day. You and I up on top of Masada. So,
where you can see the Roman encampments from the
So top. I'm going to tell Ryan, I'm going to tell him everything I know about you, David. You better be careful.
Just don't tell him that when we went to Qumran that I got chastised by you for going off into one of the caves alone.
Dave, could I say one more thing? And Dr.
Sure.
Tabor, thank you very much. I'm going to be honored to interview you. Dave is always one of the most humble people I know, and he never likes to hear this, but in relation to what I said earlier, Dave's heart is like nobody's heart you will ever meet, and his dedication, and he can take a lot, and it doesn't change the fact of who he is at heart. And I just wanted to acknowledge the fact that because of Dave's effort and continuous storytelling and trying to get the word out there and trying to get people to know, it reached an audience, the story has reached an audience that it could have never reached otherwise. And I just wanted to acknowledge you, Dave, for what a great person you are and how thankful I am for you.
You're right, that wasn't comfortable. But thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it. I love you, man.
Love you too, brother.
Oh, so wow. So that's it. In conclusion, what do we got for time? Maybe we got 10 minutes. Scott and Mab, would you like to say a few words today?
I can work my phone here. Yeah, I'd like to just kind of hit off of a few things mentioned by others on things that.
Let everyone know who you are, by the way, Scott.
Oh, okay. Yeah, let me do that. Let me introduce myself. I'm Scott, a survivor. Was there when I was a child. I was 11 in 93 when it happened. I was born in 81. A little bit about me, backstory, kind of jack of all trades, master of none, Renaissance man kind of guy. Been around a lot of different places, military brat, served military myself. So I've seen a lot of different things. It's allowed me to gain a perspective of life that what I like to call is just very open-minded. I've seen so many different things that I have a true perspective of how different the world can be. No matter who you are, people have different beliefs, different opinions, different ideologies. I think that's something we as a species need to get back to focusing on, realizing that we're all individuals and we need to, as said before, treat thy neighbor like you would want yourself to be treated. One of the major things that I like to talk about when it comes to Waco is something that Tibbs did hit on with the media. It's a big issue. It's why it's relevant today. I was asked this question: why is Waco relevant today? This happened almost 30 years ago, but why do we want to be studying it today? I think it's extremely relevant in today's social climate, today's political climate. Understanding, not really, we always like to talk about who was wrong in Waco, what happened at Mount Carmel, but what I like to make sure people realize is there's a lesson to be learned that's completely irrelevant and outside of all that, and that is what your country does to generate your perspective on life. AKA the media, the way that they drive things, the narrative, all that kind of stuff. What I learned from Waco in my research of it afterwards as an adult growing up, because I stayed away from it for some time. After it happened, my family kind of sheltered me from it. Didn't come back for about 25 years before I kind of re-engaged in the community. Realized that there is still a community there doing these memorials every year, getting the truth out there. And that's what really drew my attention to it. I wanted to, because I've been through life, and like I said, I've seen lots of different documentaries. There's, as stated before, there's so much good stuff, bad stuff. How do you weed through and figure out what is trustworthy information and what is not? That's what I would hope that our website becomes about. Information that we survivors essentially, what's the word? We condone, we support it. We support this information as something we agree with. We see it as truthful. So that's always going to be a good source for information that you should be able to trust as our truth anyway, the survivor's truth. Like I said before, we're all individuals. We all have our own truths. But why is Waco relevant today? Because of what's going on in our world right now. This is why we need to learn these lessons. And that is not what happened at Waco, why is it wrong? That is definitely a lesson that we need to listen and pay attention to and learn and understand. But also do your research and realize what the media did. How did what the government's actions needed to be justified. And they did so through a narrative, through the usage of the media. That way that the public would support their actions, no matter how wrong they are. They got the public to support them through pure propaganda, exaggerative, narrative-driven, the usage which we've talked about before, the usage of the word coal, usage of the word compound, these things that generate a perspective in the viewer's mind. That to me is one of the most dangerous things that you can overlook and not realize. Like I said, my life has been so variable. It's allowed me to really, I was forced to kind of see outside all these boxes that I lived in, observe things from different perspectives. Everybody needs to learn that, know that, and always be wary of information you get. Always do your due diligence in making sure it's a trustworthy source. And always remember 22, I believe is the number, Tibbs, was the children.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can confirm, 2024. Those voices that were silenced, those who cannot speak. We have survivors here today who can speak for these people. These people can't speak for themselves. That's the true tragedy, that we have a lot of voices who can't speak up about what was done to them. That's why we're here, and that's why we continue to do what we do to make sure everybody knows the truth. So thank you guys, appreciate it. And I do thank everybody who came. I appreciate it. Like I said before, Tabor was mentioning, get it out there. That's how the world works today. The world works through the internet. We need to spread that, as he used the term, make it go viral. That's how you get information out there. If you see information that you believe to be true and you want other people to know it, get it out there, share it, spread it. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott, very much.
Thanks, Scott.
It's 11:54. Are we starting the slideshow at 12? Was it 12:07? Catherine, do you? Because I'd like to get another.
Yes, 12:07 is when
Okay,
the
great.
fire started. And it was 22 children. If you count age 13 and younger, it's 22 children. You get different numbers when people, and if you count the 15-year-old, or maybe there were two 15-year-olds, but definitely 22 children.
Those unable to have made choices really necessarily for themselves, those are the voices that I'm really speaking to when I say that. Yes, 22.
That's right.
And did you mention who your stepfather was, Scott?
You would go there, wouldn't you? My one difficulty with Waco, yes, my stepfather was Michael Schroeder, who was coming from the mechanic shop up the road when the raid happened. I believe, I want to say this personally to you, Catherine, thank you for the nod to the fact that his execution was massively overlooked. He was tossed aside. Everybody focused on the compound, as they wanted to call it, and they totally ignored what happened to him. By the time that they actually made any effort to investigate it, you couldn't anymore. So that's another. I have a personal thing there, and I'm happy to talk about it. I don't want to get into it in this format, but if you have questions or whatnot, please feel free to, it's just, that's the one difficulty for me, because I believe he was truly, I believe he was truly executed. Absolutely no reason.
I agree, Scott. I just wanted to keep his memory alive, and you're the best person to do that. I see that Ed Hart has his hand raised, and I'd love to get Ed in on this, seeing how he does so much work for us out of the goodness of his heart.
I just wanted to echo what James Tabor and Catherine and Scott also said. As far as getting the word out there, I just ran some analytics on the site, and I believe the site went up live, I think, in June or even July, it might have been, I think it was over the summer. But from that time to the end of 2020, we've had 22,000 visits to the website. 17,000 of those were unique visitors and 56,000 page views. So that was in less than a year. So there are people out there, it's a vehicle to get the word out there, but there are, people that are looking for this and, want to know what happened. And if anyone has any content, you can reach out to me on Facebook, and anyone has anything that they want to contribute to this site, just reach out. Sometimes it takes me a couple days to get back. I'm an organized mess. But I will get it up there.
Aren't we all organized messes?
I am the poster child.
Right.
That is really anything that you guys want to say, anything you've written, anything you have. The Waco survivors is just that. It's for the Waco survivors. It's for the truth. It's for information that may be overlooked in the din and the screaming of so much media. Every day we are bombarded by radio, by television, by one side yelling, the other side yelling. Everyone yells so loud that nobody hears what the other's saying. And that's why we have so many, we're so polarized in this country. So this is one place where you can hopefully get your voice. We'll make the information available for people who really want to know. And that's the best I can hope for.
One last thing on that too, Tibbs. I'd like to point out, and this is obviously an opinion, so therefore subjective information, but take it as you wish. One good thing to focus on or look at when determining whether or not the information you're getting is better or worse, I should say, I won't say good or bad, but better or worse, is to understand that the best way to exchange information is actually through long form, not short little snippets, not short little clips of things, one little subject, you got a question, you got 10 seconds to answer it. That's always going to generate incomplete information, often misinformation. Dig down, find the proper formats, things like Catherine Wessinger's interviews, where we're just
You've been muted. I don't know how.
You got muted, Scott.
Looks like I got interrupted by a phone call. I apologize. But yeah, that's the best way to go about looking for your information. Look for the long form stuff, Catherine's interviews, stuff like that. So thank you guys.
I see.
Hey, David.
Yeah.
Hey, David, can I say something?
Absolutely.
Kathy knows that I did an analysis of the 25-year anniversary coverage by the media. There was about 8 or 10 documentaries that were done, and I published that on Nova Religio. Kathy, would it be possible to have a link to that article?
Actually, I'll look for the PDF and see if I can post the PDF, okay?
I have the PDF.
Okay, we could try putting the PDF in the chat. I don't know if that's possible, but.
Yeah, you can add a file to the chat.
Can you?
Do you want to try that, Stuart? Or do you want me to try?
I'm not too adept at this.
I'll give it a try if I have it on my computer. Phil, could you say hello just before we start?
I'll look for it.
Okay.
Phil Arnold.
Yeah, I want to get Phil in there. Listen, I know a few people have their hands up.
Sorry, you guys. I didn't mean
if we run out of time after the slideshow presentation, definitely we'll get you in. So don't worry about that. But I do want to talk to Phil. Well, have Phil say a few words while he's here.
Yes, I'm just testing the audio to see if you can hear me. You can hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
I'm sure, like the rest of you, I do feel very humbled and honored to be here today, to be with all of you, to hear so many voices, different ages, different peoples who had different types of involvement, and people who are coming to understand the injustice that was done so many years ago and who now are involved in making documentaries and researching this situation. When I think about it, I think back to those days, and I remembered feeling that the powers of the media and the government were arrayed against us. And I remember trying to keep in mind that this was a spiritual thing that we were involved in trying our best to save lives and bring reconciliation to the situation that was taking place. And I remember thinking of the prophets who themselves were persecuted and who were injured by the powers that existed in their day, in the days, say, of Israel. And of course, of Jesus, of how he stood for what was right, but yet he suffered. And the idea of suffering for that which is right and what is true motivated me then. And it made my head hard. So the FBI could not scare me or drive me away. The same with Dr. Tabor as we worked hard to save lives. So I encourage each one of you to remember the book of Ezekiel, where the prophet Ezekiel was told to keep his head hard as stone against the powers that be that would try to take him away from his mission. And as each one of you take up the cup to drink it, to participate now in new ways concerning this injustice that took place, I encourage every one of you, young and old, to be hard-headed and to be strong. God bless you all.
Thank you, Phil.
Thank you, Phil. It's beautiful.
Thank
You
you
know,
so much.
I know Holly Folk had her hand up. Let's get, I don't see her now, so let's get Eddie. Eddie had a question. And definitely, Holly, we'll talk to you at the end if we run out of time here. But before I forget, because I will, before you go, Eddie, one more thing. I wanted to say, give a special shout out and thanks to Matt Whitmer, who's here, for doing the slideshow presentation that we're going to show today. It's a great word. We've been using the slideshow for years and years now. And just thank you so much, Matt, for being a part and doing that for us. And I wanted to give a special thanks to Kristin Hunsaker, who was doing the slide, actually going to be doing the slideshow presentation, was instrumental in making sure that you're all here, that we had a email list so we wouldn't be Zoom bombed. We had to make sure it was by invite only, so you had to invite yourself by letting us know that you wanted to be here. So we all appreciate that and couldn't have done it without Kristin. Thank you so much, Kristin. Eddie, you had a few words you wanted to say?
Yeah, I'm going to make this really, really quick, and this is actually going to dovetail into both what Scott said and what Phil Arnold just said. The whole reason I got involved in this was because exactly what Scott said, because the children don't have a voice. And there's a tape of Crystal Berrios out there where she's talking with one of the negotiators, and she says, "Are you guys going to come in here and kill me?" And the guy's like, no, honey, we're not going to come in and kill you. But they did. It's not even up for debate. Some of those children, the levels of CS gas that they ingested, you know what I mean? It's just unfathomable. And the one thing I'm going to throw out, this is my challenge to everyone on this call, and this is where it dovetails into what Phil Arnold just said. There's something that we can do right now. There's a man named David Chipman who has just got nominated to head the ATF. And some of you guys that are in the survivor group know who David Chipman is. He's one of the people that stood over the bodies and took trophy photos. So this is my challenge to everyone on this Zoom call. Find 5 or 6 of your friends and call your senators, because we're from all over the country. Call your senator and do not confirm this guy. This is a man that gassed children and stood over the corpses of dead people and took photographs. Is this someone that you want heading the ATF right now? I want everyone to think, this is something we can change. This is something we can affect. Find 5 of your friends and make sure those friends will find 5 of their friends, and call your senators and tell them, do not confirm this guy. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to you, David.
Looks like we might have lost David.
I'm here. I'm here. I'm here.
Oh, okay, there he is.
That went quicker than I thought. So everyone, wow, that was, thank you, Eddie. See, it's 12:06. So this would be a good time to start the actual slideshow presentation. And we didn't do a lot of testing with this. So let's hope this goes smoothly. Does Kristin, is she able to share her screen?
She is. She's a co-host, so she can share her screen. She just needs to click share screen down at the bottom.
I think it's just going to be another second here. Oh, there we go. All right, so as the slideshow presentation continues on, I'm going to, this is where Clive usually has done this in the past, where he reads the names and talks about the people individually. I will do my best. I've not, it's going to be hard to fill Clive's shoes on this. He was just so good. He'd been there much longer in the community, knew people more than I was there for a year. Clive had a lifetime of experience with these people. So I'm going to do my best, and I will be ringing a bell for every name that is mentioned as we go on here. So it's the April 19th annual memorial, Mount Carmel Center, Waco, Texas. 28 years to the day and the time of the fire that consumed and destroyed Mount Carmel. Winston Blake, British, age 28, died February 28th, 1993. Winston was someone that I had gotten to know. He'd come, I think for the first Passover, and I'd gotten to know him. He was the individual that I actually saw. I was crawling down the hall while the shooting was still going on, and this water was coming out from the bottom of the room. There was no door. There was a blanket over the door, and I opened the door and saw that the window was smashed in and that water was pouring into the room from the 500-gallon water tank that was on the other side of Winston's room. Water was pouring in from that, from bullet holes that were in it, and there was a body laying on the ground, and that was Winston. That was the first body I'd ever seen. And I just kind of went on about my business and tried to forget something I could never forget. Winston Blake, age 28, died February 28th. Peter Gent was the Australian, age 24, died on the first day, February 28th, 1993. Peter Gent was shot on top of the water tower. Likely, it says likely from a helicopter, according to the autopsy report. He was not shot at an angle, but he was shot straight on. So the only way that he could have been shot is from a helicopter. His twin sister, Nicole Gent, was killed on April 19th. He was buried across the the driveway in the front, just under a tree past the driveway during the siege. And it was in the series they had me burying Perry Jones in that spot. It was actually Greg Summers who buried Peter Gent at the front of the building. Peter Gent, age 24, died February 28th. Peter J. Hipsman, American, was age 28. He died on February 28th, the first day, 1993. Peter was from Hawaii. He was shot above the gym on the dog run during the initial firefight. He was buried during the siege in the storm shelter that was underground. Perry D. Jones, American, age 64, died on February 28th, 1993. He was shot at the front door, along with what David Kresh went to answer the door. He had his hand on the metal door and his other hand out saying, "Hold on, there's women and children here. Let's talk about this." Everyone at the front door had the same story, that many bullets hit that door and the door flew back in David's hand from the velocity of bullets hitting it. Perry was hit in the stomach and went down screaming. So he was shot at the front door with David, father of Rachel Howell Koresh, David Jones and Michelle Jones Thibodeaux, who were also killed. They were killed on April 19th, 51 days later. He was buried during the siege in the storm shelter by Clive Doyle. Michael Schroeder, American, age 29, died on February 28th, 1993. Michael was not at Mount Carmel that day. He was outside and tried to sneak back in with a couple other individuals, and was shot at and killed. According to the autopsy, it's pretty plain he was shot execution style at the back of the building several hours after the initial firefight. He was from Florida, father of one son, 3 stepchildren, including Scott. His wife, Kathy Schroeder, exited Mount Carmel during the siege. Jadine Wendell, American, age 34. She died on February 28th, 1993. She was on the second story and she was shot in her bunk. She's from Hawaii, mother of 4 children, who were sent out during the siege, shot in the second floor bedroom and buried during the siege in the storm shelter. There were also 4 ATF agents that died on the first day on February 28th. And this is a memorial for all those that died at Mount Carmel. So we will mention their names as well. Conway LeBleu, American, ATF agent, age 30, died February 28th, 1993. Todd McKeon is another American ATF agent, age 28, died on February 28th, 1993. Robert Williams, American ATF agent, age 26, died on February 28th, 1993. Steve Willis, American ATF agent, age 32, died on February 28th, 1993. Kathy Andrade, American, age 24, died on April 19th, 1993. Kathy is an Argentinian background. Her baby Chanel and sister Jennifer were also killed on April 19th. And I just wanted to, Kathy was an incredibly astute individual, very intelligent. When we would have studies and David would give these really deep studies, it seemed that when none of us could really grasp, at times it was hard to grasp everything David was saying, Kathy would often understand thoroughly and be able to ask the deeper questions that led to David saying even deeper and more incredible things. Kathy was just one of a kind, just an amazing individual very highly intelligent and greatly missed, Kathy Andrade. Chanel Andrade, American. She was age 1, died April 19th, 1993. Her mother was Kathy Andrade, was also killed on April 19th. It was Kathy and David's daughter. Jennifer Andrade, American, age 19, died on April 19th, 1993. She's the sister to Kathy. She was also killed on April 19th. And one of the memories that is actually written here, and Clive tells the story very well from the past years, is she brought a suitcase when she first came to Mount Carmel filled with Disney movies that she wanted the whole group to watch, and we were going to watch together. And it was such a wonderful little tidbit about her and the kind of person she was. Just a beautiful individual. Jennifer. Ulrich George Bennett, British, age 35, died on April 19th, 1933. He helped supervise some of the construction of Mount Carmel. I remember he was an engineer, and he was integral in helping us build the foundation of Mount Carmel, especially. I remember that very specifically, how digging the holes and him pouring the concrete and just knowing how everything was going to work and go. And it was a very impressive individual, and it was an honor to know him and to learn from him. And that's one of the things that many of the people at Mount Carmel, we all learned so much from these people. I personally learned a great deal from each and every one of these people. So Ulrich went by Rick. We called him Rick. And anyway, he died April 19th, 1993, Ulrich George Bennett. Susan Benta, British, age 31, died on April 19th, 1993. She was of Jamaican descent. Mary Jean Borst, American, age 49. She died on April 19th, 1993. She heard David speak in Northern California with Trudy Meyer and Ophelia Santoyo. She joined David's group in the Palestine, Texas era. That was after they kicked off Mount Carmel by George Roden before they had to deal with the lawsuit and come back onto the property. That was the Palestinian days. Joined David's group in Palestine, Texas. Son Brad later became a policeman in Colorado. My good friend, Pablo Cohen. He was Israeli. He was the guy that whenever we had a question on a word or phrase, we would have him break open the Hebrew and read the Hebrew and what it actually said in Hebrew. So if there was a question with a word or, Pablo was our go-to guy to find out the truest translation we could possibly get for every scripture that was available. Pablo was a musician, a bass player, and a story I can remember about Pablo is a story that I was told by David and Steve as well. When they went to Israel, they saw this guy, and they met and they started talking, and there was a place called the Prophet's Pub, and at the Prophet's Pub, their saying was, "The end is near, so have a beer at the Prophet's Pub," and they went and had a beer together. And Pablo ended up learning from David and coming over, and he was his bass player and part of the rhythm section that I had that that existed was Pablo and myself. We played so many jams together. Pablo Cohen, Israeli, age 38, died on April 19th, 1993. Met David in Israel and was given a bass guitar by David. Abigail, oh boy, Abidawalo Davies. I'm sure that I am pronouncing that wrong. We called him Dabo. He was from Nigeria, and we all called him Dabo. So Clive, you want to step in? No, it's Abidawalo Davies, British, age 30, died on April 19th, 1993. Sherry E. Doyle, American. She was age 18. She died on April 19th, 1993. This is Clive Doyle's youngest daughter. Spent much of the siege in the chapel with Clive and Marjorie Thomas. Just a beautiful, beautiful young lady with a beautiful smile. It lit up every room she ever walked into. Sweet, just a sweet girl, and she's very missed by all of us. Sherry Doyle. Excuse me. Beverly Elliott, British, age 30, died on April 19th, 1993. Engaged to Winston Blake, who was killed on February 28th. I believe Winston was killed by the helicopters because I saw the trajectory of the bullet hole coming through the tank. The water tank, sorry, I should have mentioned that earlier. But Beverly Elliott, British, age 30, died on April 19th, 1993. Doris Fagan, British, age 60, died on April 19th, 1993, son of Livingston Fagan. Her son is Livingston Fagan. Was the last one negotiated out of the residence during the siege. And Livingston, of course, went to jail for many years and spent an incredible amount of time in solitary confinement. And is alive and well and living in England. Doris Fagan, the mother of Livingston. Yvette Fagan, British, age 32, also died on April 19th, 1993. She was the mother of 2 children sent out during the siege. Mother-in-law Doris was killed on April 19th. And of course, husband Livingston was the last one negotiated out of the residence and lives in England. Yvette Fagan. Lisa Marie Ferris, American, age 24, died April 19th, 1993. And I'm sorry, it's hard not to chuckle when I think of Lisa Ferris. She was very much a Hollywood rocker, very much like me. Just a very, very cool young lady. Met David in a music store in California and started learning the 7 Seals and wanted to be a part. And when I met her, I just felt a kindred spirit. It's like there were many times I would look at Lisa and just feel like both of us don't belong in a religious order learning about the scripture, yet there we were. So I will always remember Lisa fondly. Lisa Ferris, American, age 24, died April 19th, 1993. Raymond Friesen, Canadian, age 76, when he died on April 19th, 1993. previous Mennonite married to Tilly Friesen. Both became Branch Davidians. Raymond was one of several people who came in the chapel area on April 19th when the fire started. And as the fire started to, he was in the same area that we were, myself, Jamie Casillo, Clive Doyle, of course, Wayne Martin Jr. were all back there in the area. He didn't make it out of that area, as neither did Wayne. Raymond Friesen, age 76, died on April 19th, 1993. Sandra Hardile, British, age 27, also died on April 19th, 1993. Sandra was of Jamaican descent. Zilla Henry, member of the Henry family. There was several Henrys that we're going to be seeing that lived, prayed, and died together. Zilla Henry is British, age 55, died April 19th, 1993. She brought her 5 young adult children to Mount Carmel in 92, and all of them were killed on April 19th. Zilla Henry. Diana Henry, British, age 28, died April 19th, 1993. Mother Zilla Henry and 4 siblings were also killed on April 19th. Stephen Henry, British, age 26. He died on April 19th, 1993. His mother was Zilla Henry, and his 4 siblings were also killed on April 19th, 1993. Paulina Henry, British, age 24, died on April 19th, 1993. Mother was Zilla Henry, and 4 siblings were killed on April 19th. I actually wanted to say this with Stephen, but the Henry family were just, they were an incredible family, just incredible. These people were all Bible students. I believe that many of them, if not all of them, were pursuing higher education, going to seminary school. They wanted to know what the Bible really said, what the deeper meanings were of the Jewish text as well as the Christian texts, and how it could all be tied in together. They were true seekers, the entire family. And it was an awesome sight to see them get together after study and discuss what they had learned and what questions to ask. They just were very thorough and genuine, and they just really wanted to know God. And that's how I will always remember them. True servants of the Lord. Paulina Henry, British, age 24, died on April 19th, 1993. Philip Henry, British, age 22, died on April 19th, 1993. Mother Zilla Henry and 4 siblings were also killed on April 19th. Philip was definitely a seeker, very inquisitive mind. I've had some amazing conversations with Philip and Stephen there. The whole family is greatly missed. Vanessa Henry, British, age 19, died on April 19th, 93. Her mother was Zilla Henry, and her 4 siblings were also killed on April 19th. The Henry family. Novelette Sinclair Hipsman, Canadian, age 36. She died on April 19th, 93. She was from Montreal and spoke French, Canadian French. Met Clive Doyle in 1981 in Canada. Studied with Lois Roden. She was friends and worked cleaning jobs with Bonnie Haldeman, David Kresh's mother. They were very close. And if you read Bonnie's book, there's a lot of back and forth about Novelette Sinclair Hipsman. Novelette Sinclair Hipsman died Mount Carmel, April 19th, 1993. Floyd Houtman, my good buddy Floyd. Floyd was everybody's buddy. He would come up and give you a hearty handshake, and trust me, your hand was well shaked when Floyd Houtman got a hold of you. Always had a smile, always had a positive attitude, just the kind of guy you always wanted to be around, and a very large individual too. So you definitely wanted him on your side if there was going to be a brawl. Floyd was the man. He was a former boxer, if my memory serves me. Floyd Houtman, American, age 61, died on April 19th, 1993, came from New Bedford, Massachusetts, with 2 busloads of people. He was friends with Stan Silva. Stan is one of the members who survived. They were always together. They were. I would say they were best friends, Stan and Floyd. They just you almost never saw them apart. That was my memory of the year that I get to share their lives. One of the people who came into the chapel on April 19th after the fire had started and died back there in the hallway between the gymnasium and the chapel. Sherry Jewell, American, age 43, died April 19th, 1993. Sherry was from Hawaii and was close to Steve Schneider, came over with the group from Hawaii, found the message when David went over there. She was a school teacher, like her mother. Her daughter, Carrie, went to live with her father in Michigan in 1992. David M. Jones, American, age 38. He died on April 19th, 1993. David was the eldest son of Perry Jones. He was the mailman who learned of the impending raid on February 28th. Dad and sisters Rachel and Michelle were killed on April 19th. Survived by ex-wife Kathy, sons Mark, Kevin, and daughter Heather. All came out during the siege. David Koresh, American, age 33, also died on April 19th, 1993. Original name was Vernon Howell. David Koresh is a name that he said God gave him. He visited Mount Carmel in 1981 to study under Lois Roden. He was a member of I believe, a branch Davidian church in the area that he was in. He asked one of the older members, why are there no prophets anymore? How come there are no prophets? He used to study the Bible. His stepbrother said that he would leave for work and Vernon would be reading the scripture. He would come back from work 8 hours later and Vernon would be in the same chair at the same desk reading the scripture. Original name, Vernon Howell, visited Mount Carmel in 91 to study under Lois Roden. He became the leader of the Davidians from 94 to 1993 and died on April 19th, 1993. Rachel Howell Koresh, American, age 24, died on April 19th, 1993, daughter of Perry Jones, who was killed on February 28th. Legal wife of David Koresh, David's first wife. Sister of David and Michelle Jones, who were killed on April 19th. Rachel's 3 children were killed on April 19th as well. Cyrus Howell Koresh, American, age 8. Died on April 19th, 1993. His mother was Rachel Howell Koresh, and his 2 younger sisters were also killed on April 19th. His father was David Koresh. Star Howell. Star Howell Koresh, American, age 6, died on April 19th, 1993. Mother Rachel Howell Koresh and her brother and sister were all killed on April 19th as well, 1993. Star Howell. Bobby Lane Koresh, American, age 2, died on April 19th, 1993. Mother was Rachel Howell Koresh, and her brother and sister were both killed on April 19th as well. Jeffrey Little, American, age 32, died on April 19th, 1993. From Michigan and lived in Hawaii. Computer expert. He lived with Greg Summers in Hawaii. Jeffrey was almost shot on February 28th. Lived through the siege and died on April 19th, 1993. Nicole E. Gent Little, Australian, age 24, died on April 19th, 1993. Her twin brother was Peter Gent, who was killed on February 28th in the water tower. She's married to Jeff Little, who was killed on April 19th. Mother of Dayland and Pages, who died on April 19th. And mother of trauma-born infant who died also on April 19th, 1993. Nicole Gent Little. Dylan L. Gent, American, age 3. Died on April 19th, 1993. Died with his mother, Nicole Gent Little, on April 19th. Dalen's 2 siblings were also killed on April 19th. Pages Gent, American, age 1. Died on April 19th, 1993. Died with mother Nicole Gent Little. Page's 2 siblings were also killed on April 19th. Trauma-born baby Gent, American, died April 19th, 1993. Mother was Nicole Gent Little. Livingston Malcolm, British, age 26, died April 19th, 1993. We called him Stone, was his name. Stone was a very gregarious character, always had a smile and a laugh. Fun to be around. Cousin to the musician Bob Marley from Jamaica. I actually saw a picture of the entire Bob Marley family, and there was Stone right in the middle of them. There was probably 12 or 13 different people in that picture, and there was Livingston Malcolm. One of the 10 people who were in the chapel was killed on April 19th in the fire, 1993. Livingston Malcolm. Diane Martin, British, age 41, died on April 19th, 1993. Had traveled to Texas several times to study with David. She came over as much as she could, usually when we're doing, it was either the Feast of Tabernacles or the Passover, when people would come for the 2-week festival periods of God. It was twice a year. She would always come and have the studies, and astute student of the Seven Seals, Diane Martin. Douglas Wayne Martin, American, age 42, died on April 19th, 1993. Wayne was married to Sheila Martin, who exited during the siege. They had 7 children, 4 of whom were killed on April 19th. Wayne was an attorney and had a practice within the city of Waco. He was Harvard educated, law school librarian. He was the individual who called 911 during the very first shots of BATF raid and tried to get them to call it off. He tried to negotiate the ceasefire from the very first shots, and he spent 40 minutes yelling and screaming for them to stop shooting at us, to no avail. Well, the madness and the violence went on and on and on and on. Wayne Martin was a very special individual, very intelligent, someone I learned many great lessons from. He told me many, many stories that I will keep with me. He wanted to be in finance and had an interview once with a big financial institution, whose name I won't mention, but he was basically, they told him that a lot of people come to us and they have these nest eggs and they want to invest their nest eggs, and our job is to take those nest eggs and make them our profit. And Wayne said, I cannot work here, and went into a private practice and left the financial world behind after hearing that story. Wayne Martin, age 42, died on April 19th, 1993. Wayne Joseph Martin, Wayne Jr., Little Wayne, we call him. American, he was age 20. He died on April 19th, 1993 with his father. He was the son of Douglas Wayne and Sheila Martin. 3 siblings, and his father, of course, were also killed on April 19th. Anita Marie Martin, American, age 18, died April 19th, 1993. Daughter of Douglas Wayne and Sheila Martin. 3 siblings and father were killed on April 19th as well. Anita Marie Martin. Sheila Renee Martin, American, age 15, died April 19th, 1993. She was the daughter of Douglas Wayne and Sheila Martin. 3 siblings and father were killed on April 19th. Lisa Marie Martin, American, age 13, died on April 19th, 1993. Daughter of Wayne and Sheila. 3 siblings and father were killed on April 19th, 1993. John Mark Mcbean, British, age 27, died on April 19th, 1993. John was one of the individuals that was furthering his education, very interested in the scripture and the true words and the true meaning of the words of God, wanted to know what the Bible truly meant, found someone that could teach it, studied under David. His mother and sister knew most of the British people at Mount Carmel. They were an integral part of the community. His sister Janet Mcbean was in California with a few other Branch Davidians in 1993. John died April 19th. He was age 27. Bernadette Monbelly, British, age 31. She was good friends with John Mark Mcbean's whole family, and came over with them, died age 31, died April 19th, 1993, is Bernadette Monbelly. Rosemary Morrison, British, age 29, died on April 19th, 1993. Mother of Melissa, who was also killed on April 19th. She was buried in Waco. Melissa Morrison, British, age 6, died April 19th, 1993, died with her mother Rosemary on that day, and was buried in Waco. Sonia Murray, British, age 29, died April 19th, 1993. Teresa Nobrega, British as well, age 48, died on April 19th, 1993, of Portuguese descent. Daughter Natalie was negotiated out during the siege. Teresa's husband has kept in touch with Clive Doyle over the years. Natalie was a beautiful young lady. I hope that she is thriving and doing well. To find out for next year and see how she's doing. Teresa Nobrega. James L. Riddle, American, age 32. Clive Doyle's best friend, very close they were, died on April 19th, 1993. From North Carolina, great, as I said, great friends with Clive Doyle and Bonnie Haldeman, David's mother. They were very close. His sister, Rita Riddle, one of a kind. Rita's amazing. It was an amazing, the Riddles were just an amazing family. You just, I can hear their laugh right now, collectively, both of them. Sister Rita Riddle came out during the siege. Niece, Misty Ferguson, was badly burned. Over 70 or 80% of her body. She was badly burned during the fire, but she survived. As far as I know, they live in North Carolina. But James L. Riddle, age 32, died April 19th, 1993. Juliet Centoyo, American, age 30, died on April 19th, 93. She was of Mexican descent, daughter of Ophelia Santoyo, who exited during the siege. Had 5 children who were killed on April 19th. Ophelia was living out at Mount Carmel after the fact and was thrown off the property by someone whose name is not worth mentioning, but Juliet Centoyo. Audrey M. Martinez, American, age 13, died on April 19th, 1993. Her mother was Juliet Centoyo, who was killed on April 19th. Her 4 siblings were also killed on April 19th. Abigail Martinez, American, age 11, died on April 19th. Her mother, of course, was Juliet Centoyo. What a beautiful family. These were beautiful girls. This is just so needlessly killed on April 19th, 1993. Joseph S. Martinez, American, age 8, died April 19th, 1993. Mother was Julie Centoyo. He was killed on April 19th. 4 siblings were also killed. Joseph and his brother and I would play cards during the siege. I think we played for crayons. I always won. We would look out, and I was teaching them how to gamble. I was definitely not a very good influence, I guess. But we would play cards and sit out there and watch as the tanks would go by, and the kids would get in the window, and we'd all be out there watching the tanks go by with the agents on there flipping us off. And of course, the next day the agents would say that we were using our kids as human shields and putting them in the window. And what kid doesn't want to go in a window and watch a tank go by their house? I mean, I think it's something every kid would do. So, got sidetracked. Sorry, guys. Joseph Martinez, age 8. Isaiah Berrios. Called him, his nickname was Taco. Everyone called him Taco, and he's one of the Julie's young children, an adorable young man. We had we played so many games together. As a kid, literally lit up a room when he walked in. He always had that very smile that you see in this picture constantly on his face. I never saw this kid sad. He just made you feel happy at your darkest time. This kid could make you feel happy. Isaiah Berrios, American, age 4, died on April 19th, 1993. His mother was Julie. Crystal Berrios, age 3. Her mother was Julie as well. She was killed on April 19th and died with her 4 siblings. Rebecca Sapia, New Zealand, age 24, died on April 19th, 93. She was of Samoan descent. Her sisters, Grace and Poya, who lived. They lived with David's group in Palestine, Texas era. Steve Schneider, American, age 43, died on April 19th, 1993. Steve was from Wisconsin, met David Koresh in Hawaii, joined David's group during the Palestine, Texas era, and negotiated with agents during the siege. Steve Schneider was David's right-hand man. If David was ever buying music equipment or anything at all, Steve was, I would say, instrumental in negotiating the best deals possible. Steve had the gift of gab, he had the gift of charm, and he had the intelligence to back it up. He could sell ice cubes to an Eskimo. This guy was truly gifted, very knowledgeable about scripture, very knowledgeable about many things. We used to talk about the one world order, Adam Weishaupt, the secret societies of America, all this before the internet, all this before people really knew what the Illuminati were. Stephen had this amazing knowledge of things. And when it came to scripture, I would say it was only David that could surpass him in giving incredible studies and with an incredible knowledge of the scripture from Genesis to Revelation. Steve Schneider, amazing individual. Died age 43, April 19th, 1993. Judith Schneider, Steve's long wife, American. She was age 41, died April 19th, 93. She was wounded on February 28th, shot in the hand, in the finger. She's the wife of Steve and mother of Mena. Both died on April 19th, 93. Mina Schneider, American, age 2, died on April 19th, 93. Died with her mother, Judy, on April 19th. Clifford Sellers, the great artist. Cliff, as we called him, did all of the artwork. Many of David Koresh's guitars airbrushed by Cliff. He airbrushed many of the young men that were with David in the Palestinian area before my era, when they were in Palestine, if you will, Texas, and David bought them all motorcycles, and Cliff had airbrushed many of the tanks, of the motorcycle tanks. He did custom artwork. He developed the Mount Carmel flag, which was the fiery flying serpent with the 7 seals. The God Rocks, the David Koresh God Rocks t-shirt that many of you may have seen, that was Cliff. Cliff did all the artwork. He did, when we put out the sheets that said, Rodney King, we understand, and God help us, we want the press, that was Cliff's handiwork. Cliff did all that. He was the local artist, born in Hong Kong. Father was in the military. He painted New Religious Charts during the siege as well. Credible individual. Clifford Sellers, British, age 33, died April 19th, 1993. Scott Kojiro Sonobe, American, age 35. He died on April 19th, 93. Japanese American. His father once came to Waco to thank David Koresh. He actually thanked David Koresh for helping Scott from his troubled youth and credited David for saving his son and making him the person that he became. Married to Floresita, father to Crystal and Angelica. Scott told me this story. He was the individual, he was upstairs. So he was upstairs in David Koresh's room, apparently, when the BATF attacked. And when they put the ladder up, Scott told me this himself. When they put the ladder on the side of the building and the ATF agents went in there, they threw a flashbang grenade in that office room that was next to Koresh's on the 2nd story. You see that famous picture, if y'all can think of it, they're throwing the flashbang grenade and then 2 agents go in, or an agent goes in, and then you see a bunch of shots coming from the inside coming out. The other agent falls down and then goes back down the ladder. Scott told me that he was in the room and he heard this huge, in Koresh's room, heard this loud bang. It was a flashbang grenade. And he looked into the office and he saw a guy dressed in black had just come through and was raising his gun and started shooting at Scott. Scott ducked back into the room, into Koresh's room, and he had a handgun, and he started to spray the room for his life. And he said he thought he was a goner. He told me he just started shooting blindly while he had his head down, hoping they would go away. And apparently it was enough to get the agent back out of the room. So all those shots that you see coming from the inside out are from Scott fearing for his life and defending his life. Scott was 35. Scott Sonobe. Floresita Sonobe, American, age 34, was married to Scott. Died on April 19th, 93, a Filipina American. She was also killed on April 19th. Mother to Crystal and Angelica, who were the first children to be sent out after the BATF raid, the first negotiated out of the building. Gregory A. Summers, American, age 28, died on April 19th, 1993. He's from New York. He's married to Aisha Garifas. He worked with Judy Schneider, and he was friends with Peter Hipsman. Peter and Greg had a comedy routine that they performed. That must have been before my time, because I don't remember that, but I consider Greg to be one of my close friends inside that building. I looked up to Greg very much. He was a hard worker. He believed in Scripture and the Bible sincerely. He really wanted to know what it said and meant. We had many conversations about many, many things over the course of many nights of late nights talking with Greg. Just an amazing individual. He did a lot of the excavation work at the back of the building when we built the pool. He was the guy that was out there on the excavator moving all the dirt. Just very, very hardworking individual and someone who I greatly miss. Greg Summers. Aisha Garfis Summers, Australian. She was age 17. Died on April 19th, 1993 of Hungarian descent. Came to Texas with brother Oliver, who exited during the siege. Mother of Startle and a trauma-born baby who died on April 19th, 1993. Startle Summers, American, age 1. Died on April 19th, 1993. Died with her mother, Aisha Garfis Summers, on April 19th. Trauma-born baby, Garfis Summers, American. Died on April 19th, 1993. Died with her mother, Aisha Garfis Summers, on that day. Lorraine Sylvia, American. She was age 40. Died on April 19th, 93. She was born in England, but from New Bedford, Massachusetts. She was good friends with Sheila Martin. She was married to Stan Sylvia, who was born in California in 1993. Her son Joshua was sent out during the siege. Lorraine died with her 2 daughters, Rachel and Hollywood, on April 19th. Rachel Sylvia, American. She was age 12. Died on April 19th. Died with her mother, Lorraine, on that day. Beautiful young girl. Hollywood Sylvia, American, age 1, died on April 19th, 1993, with her mother, Lorraine. Michelle Jones Thibodeaux, American, age 18, died on April 19th, 1993. Michelle was a very special individual, daughter of Perry Jones, who was killed on February 28th. Her mother was Marybelle Jones, who was not at Mount Carmel during the siege and survived. Her sister, she was the sister of Rachel Howell Koresh and David Jones, who were both killed on April 19th. Michelle's 3 children were also killed on April 19th in the concrete structure. Serenity C. Jones, age 4, died on April 19th, 1993, with her mother, Michelle Jones at Thibodeaux. Serenity was, of course, one of the children featured in the series, and is one of the most special little girls ever, with the most beautiful smile ever. And hopefully is somewhere where she deserves to be. Serenity Jones. Chica Jones, American, age 22 months. Died on April 19th, 1993, with her mother, Michelle, twin of Little One Jones. Little One Jones, age 22 months, died April 19th, 1993, died with her mother, Michelle, on April 19th, twin of Chica Jones. Margarita Vega, American, age 47, died April 19th, 93, Chinese descent, born in China and came to Texas from Hawaii, married to Neil Vega, who was killed on April 19th, and sent daughter Joanne out during the siege. Neil Vega, American, age 38, died on April 19th, 1993. He's of Samoan descent, born in America when parents were traveling, buried in Auckland, New Zealand. Mark H. Wendell, American, age 40, died on April 19th, 1993. He was well educated, worked for several school districts in California. Married to J. Dean, who was killed on April 19th, father of 4 children who were sent out during the siege. Actually, I'm sorry, that's J. Dean was killed on February 28th. So that's a correction we'll have to make for the future. J. Dean was killed on the first day. Father of 4 children who were sent out during the siege, Mark Wendell. That's the conclusion? Okay, it looks like that is the conclusion of the presentation of the reading of the names, the tolling of the bell for all of those who died at Mount Carmel between the dates of February 28th and April 19th, 1993. You know, it seems like the reading of the names goes on and on and on. And doing this year, it just really, it's just a great honor. I feel not worthy at all to even read the names of these people. But when you see entire families that are lost to us, it's just the amount of time, the number of individuals that were lost at Mount Carmel. And it's all so needless. It's all because of the arrogance of the federal government. All they had to do was get David Koresh jogging in front of their house, or when they went to a gun range with him, the agents could have picked him up. There was no need for them to go in and attack all these people, set up this insane 51-day siege with tanks and helicopters. It's the most needless waste of life I could ever have thought. I couldn't have imagined it. Anyway, their names will live on forever. Well, okay, I'm gonna open this up to any questions. That obviously concludes the Mount Carmel 28th year memorial. I'm not sure how to get back to the view that we had. Are we still? What view are we on? Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah.
We can hear you.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Hey, Tibbs, you want to let me say a few things on a few individuals?
Sure, absolutely. I definitely want to, yes, do that. I definitely want to open up to questions too for those that have been waiting. But let's go. Yeah, yes, sure.
Wanted to, this being a memorial, we're here to remember those that aren't here with us anymore. I love Tibbs's little stories, things he remembers of these people. I think that's the important part, being able to remember them. And as he said, make them immortal through that memory. Floyd, the ex-boxer he was talking about, a little story on him. He had an accident at some point, I don't remember the specifics of, but he was missing part of an index finger. And as Tibbs explained, he had quite the handshake. But for the kids, it wasn't quite the handshake. I do remember as a young man, he was, you know, he had that toughen you up kind of nature about him. But he always had this amazing, unbelievably gentle side that just amazes me looking back at it. Like Tibbs said, he was a big, imposing individual, but yet you felt so safe around him. He would do these little hand gestures because his index finger was missing. He would even take a Sharpie sometimes and draw little eyes on his hand and make little faces like a little puppet type deal for the kids to get us laughing. Absolutely wonderful human being. Cliff, the individual that did all the artwork, he said, something that will live on from him is the inspiration he gave me. As an artist myself, he was someone I always looked up to as an inspiration for the artwork. I remember seeing the guitars that he did for David and just being absolutely amazed. It was something that really shot me into pursuing my own hand at art. Tibbs was an influential character for me as well, having an interest in the drums. My stepfather, Mike, was also a drummer. Seeing the two of them both up there, Tibbs, my stepfather, Mike, also had the long hair, the rocker look that Tibbs had back in the day. So I kind of saw the two of them as this two-edged sword thing of an inspiration for me, seeing the differences in both of the way they played. I remember being just infatuated with watching you guys up there on the stage. And then another family that brings back a lot of memories for me was the Martinez family. Joseph, Crystal, those kids there. Joseph we had what I call a little friend triangle, me, Joseph, and Cyrus. Kevin was also a part of that group at times as well, but the Joneses had family locally and stuff, so they were often on and off property. So sometimes Kevin wasn't actually there, but me, Joseph, and Cyrus were the three who got in trouble for the syrup that we got into the one time, and David brought us all together and sat all the other kids around and used the experience of disciplining the three of us to teach everyone. But that also inspired me in learning how I interact with my kids, learning how to raise my kids and discipline mine, to always use it as a lesson to teach them. But there was a lot of influential people there. I want everyone to know that part of them all live on through me and what I remember of them and the ways that they have influenced me in my life. Thank you.
Very well said, Scott. That was beautiful. Thank you so much. Heather, do you want to say anything? You do not have to. I'm just giving you the opportunity in case you might. We also have Kevin too. He looks like he's driving, so I don't know if he wants to say anything. But I don't want to leave you all out. You guys are just so important to this, and surviving children are very special.
No, thank you.
Okay, Heather. Kev, you all right? I see you're driving. Just give a thumbs up. Okay. Kevin's driving, so we're not going to bother him. How about Clive? How you feeling, Clivey? He's on mute. You're on mute, Clive.
Feeling a little under the weather. I had all my teeth out and I have to learn to eat and go all over again.
You're a trooper.
Well, you don't have to say anything. I just wanted to give you the opportunity in case you wanted to.
You might want to remember those that have died since the fire, the survivors that have died over the years. The latest one that I know of is Kevin Whitecliff.
Mm-hmm.
And also our lawyer that we had during the trial, second trial. Was
Ramsey Clark.
Ramsey Clark. I don't know whether you mentioned them before.
We talked about them earlier, but there are other individuals that died that I did not mention. Maybe you'd like to do that, Clive. I didn't
This
prepare.
is off the top of my head. James Lauder.
Yeah. Sheila's son, Jamie, died several years ago. Jamie Casillo, a very dear friend, great bass player, and died after he had gotten out of jail. That was another one. There have been, boy, there's a few.
Most of the old people were survivors have passed away.
Tilly Friesen, Maribel Jones.
My mother, Edna Doyle.
Edna Doyle, yes.
Tilly Friesen.
Yep. Clive, last year, Clive lost his other daughter in a car accident. Karen, of course, and just a horrible event.
Oh, Tibbs too. I wanted to say you did a good job there, brother. I know usually Clive does this. It's a difficult thing to do, and the utmost respect to Clive over the years for doing this for so long.
I was praying for a miracle. I was praying that God would heal him instantly, and he would be able to pull this off.
Well, speaking of that,
he was actually sicker today than he was yesterday. So yeah, that's the Thibodeaux luck right there.
Oh, that figures. But he's not going to be around forever, unfortunately. And moving into next year, any of these that I am here for, if you would like help with presentation of the names, if you want to talk about it beforehand, about the ones that I know, because I like the aspect of us putting in some kind of personalization to it, the ones that we can. So for any of the ones that I could do that, we'll talk about something and I can get in there and help you.
That'd be great. Also, since I have so many wonderful people on this, if anybody knows somebody who has better pictures of the individuals that have either gone on, we would love to get some better pictures, especially some of the blurry ones. A lot of these pictures come from the internet. A lot of them are hard to find. I know that we want to we want to upgrade. We want to make it. There's like some of the Henry family members, really blurry pictures. Anyone who can maybe help with that, anyone who's super good at finding things online that don't exist or are very hard to find, that's something we could use, is some better pictures of the individuals to better memorialize them. Just a thought.
I think if we're all on this, then it'll get done, because we're pretty resourceful people.
Let's take all the hard work that Matthew had done putting the show together and make it even better. And again, we can't thank you enough, Matt, for doing that for us all those years ago. And here we are still using the same slideshow presentation. Thank you so much. Well, so some special, let's see. Douglas, you've been a great source of inspiration to us. Thank you so much for being there. Douglas has come and visited us, Mr. Stockwell, on several occasions. Whenever anyone's feeling down, he's always there with a pick-me-up. He's a very, very wonderful individual, very special. We're very glad that you're part of the family, my friend.
Thank you all so very much.
We got some hands up. I'm wanting to get to Holly Folk. Rebecca, we will definitely get to you, but I'd like to hear from Holly Folk, who has been waiting so patiently with her hand up to have a chance to speak. Holly, I had the pleasure of meeting her last year. She teaches religious studies, and I'll take it from there, Holly. Tell them what you do.
Thank you, David. It's wonderful to be here, and thank you. I'm honored, and I'm very honored to be included. This is the second time I've listened to this memorial, and I know how important it is. And I know it's very somber. It's an interesting year, because this year I've seen, as somebody who studies new religious movements, an absolute explosion in anti-cult rhetoric, in language against religion, and language against civil liberties. And I think that your experience is something that has so much relevance right now in a society that's changing very rapidly, in a society where a lot of people are wondering whether the Bill of Rights is even important. I've come to the awareness that the our worlds are very regional, and our situations are very situational, depending on where we are in the country and what the political situation or the culture is. But from where I sit and having talked to people and been to a few places over the past year, it's become really obvious to me that there are a lot of forces stirring in the US and internationally that want very, very hard for us not to have a free society. And I feel like it's presumptuous to come to a memorial here to ask you for something, but I guess I will just sort of add my voices to the call to ask you to continue to talk and to tell your story. It has an enormous relevance for what happened at Waco, and it also has an enormous relevance for our world. Our society needs to see people who have tried to go on with their lives after a devastating experience like this. They need a better sense of who actually joins new religious movements, and they need to understand better the consequences of actions taken against groups when there isn't understanding. Thank you so much for letting me be here. God bless all of you.
Well, that was very well said. Thank you so much. How about Rebecca?
Yes, my comment kind of goes along with what Holly was saying. I was remembering one of the negotiation tapes that I was listening to, and David said, "Be careful how you judge us, because what you do to us will happen to you." And here we see ourselves in this world being besieged, and we're in that losing a lot of our freedoms, and we kind of get to experience what they went through, which makes me think that the next part that's coming is the loss of our religious freedom. And so I loved what Philip Arnold said, keep your head strong against the adversary and against those powers that be that would come against us. And so we get our chance to see what we're made of and what we're going to do.
You know, that, Rebecca, that is such a great point. I just see so many trials ahead for this country. It's like I said in the original speech that I gave at the beginning of this. It's we have a lot of battles that are coming up, and if we don't stop screaming at each other and start listening, then the history happens secular. It continues to occur. The things that happened with Rome before it fell, things that happened with Germany before it fell, all these things share an identical spirit. And you see certain things that take place before the real bad stuff begins. And we're at that point now, we're so polarized as a nation. It's just both sides scream and yell and scream and yell, and they think that they're right. There's usually what I call a middle space, a middle area. What the concept I've come up with, and I'm not running for public office here, but you get the red and you get the blue, right? You get the Republicans and the Democrats. When you mix both colors, you get purple. So I propose a purple party.
Yeah.
A party where we have right to bear arms, and we also want to help out the less fortunate and want to, maybe build one or two less B-1 bombers, stealth bombers, just one or two, and take those billions of dollars and put them to helping our vets, helping the homeless. How about mental health for the entire country? Do you think there would be so many shootings all the time if people had access to proper health care and mental health? I don't think I don't think we would see the problems if people had the resources. And we're the richest nation on the face of the earth. We have the resources. That's it. That's my piece. How about Sean?
Hey, David, how are you doing?
How you doing, man?
Hey, I'm doing good, brother. Hey, I was just wondering, I know that you've talked to a lot of people. Have you ever had the chance or an opportunity to interview any of the ATF agents that were there the day one?
I think that Ryan has interviewed some of the FBI guys that have come out of retirement. Ryan, are you still here, Mr. Azevedo? He might not be. I think he had a meeting.
No, I'm still here. I was just muted. Sorry, Dave.
Oh, great. How about talking to some ATF agents?
Have not spoken with ATF agents that were on the ground during the day, but I have spoken with a number of FBI agents that were on the ground for all of the days.
Are you running into any roadblocks trying to speak to the ATF guys?
The ATF guys, or even the retired guys, really are not wanting to talk. And they seem to be very, within the FBI, they seem to be, once they retired, they were very much willing to connect me with other agents. With the ATF, it's been exact opposite.
Wow.
If someone mentioned, I can't remember who, I apologize for that, but someone mentioned that the Texas Rangers took early statements of all the ATF guys and that those are locked up somewhere or have not been made public. So maybe Ryan, you and I can work on that in the future. You're trying to find a lead there and see if that's something that either, if it hasn't come out, can it come out? It would be nice to know early on what each agent, what they had to say to the Texas Rangers. But I got a feeling that's one of those things that'll never be released. So anyone that has any information on that, we'd be more than willing to listen to, by the way.
Yeah, also any relatives that might be connected, either ATF, Texas Rangers, FBI, anybody like that, that's greatly appreciated. Even a connection of a connection is great.
You know, on that point, David, one of the most interesting things about this, from the start, the 302 interviews with the ATF agents were ordered stopped, as I recall, by Johnston, the U.S. attorney or assistant U.S. attorney that was part of the prosecution, because, and this was testified to in the congressional hearings, they were creating Brady material. In other words, the more they interviewed the ATF agents, the more they were exposing, that they were in the wrong. And so they stopped. So I don't know how many of the 75 or 80 agents were interviewed, but probably far less than half. And then the other thing I would add to that, and I know Charlene will remember this because we spent a good week in the civil trial in the courtroom watching some of the ATF agents confronted with the statements that at that time were available from their 302s and the story they told at the time, and then what they told at San Antonio in the criminal trial, and then years later at the civil trial. And it was like the fish story where you catch a little minnow, but you retell it year by year, and next thing you know, you've captured the world record marlin. It's not the same story. It just grows and grows and grows until it's beyond reality. And we watched one of the agents confronted with that and watched him squirm in his seat and swear that he hadn't changed his story. So yeah, it would be great to be able to get hold of those 302s.
Wow, this is intriguing. I think we know what kind of work we have to do here, Ryan. But thank you for that, Roletta. It would just make sense that the more that they open their mouths and incriminate themselves, the more the other agents aren't going to want to talk. And yeah, that's really interesting how that wall of silence comes down very quickly. Wow. All right, so we got some work to do. That's good. Also, I'm hoping for a sickbed or deathbed confession from someone on tape. I'll spend whole afternoons watching deathbed confessions on YouTube because they are so fascinating. What people really have to say when they know they're gonna meet their maker, and the truth comes out. And a lot of history, the realities of history, including JFK, many different events. There's a broader way of looking at things now because of some of these deathbed confessions. So, not that I want anyone to die, but the point is, if you're not going to do it now, as long as the truth comes out. So we got John Mark,
Hey, David.
Has his hand up. How you doing, man?
All right. I don't know if anybody's aware of this. I know you are because you and I talked about it. Recently, about a month ago, I was on the property out there, and there were some people out there with a Q&A session. And at the end, an FBI agent revealed himself and said they should have never been out there. And I asked him, I said, why do you say this? And he's like, we had no business there. So I think everybody needs to be aware. Truth is coming out.
Yeah, I have heard from daughters of people that their fathers were ATF agents that have told me stories. And they're ATF agents that weren't there that day, but are very critical of the actions of the group of ATF agents that were, and basically how they really gave the ATF a black eye, and how most ATF agents in other cities thinks what that group of ATF agents did was so ridiculous and over the line that it kind of shames them. And I have heard that from people who know people, and I think it's definitely a very interesting perspective. Yeah.
Same.
Thank you, Mark. Charlene, our old friend Charlene, who has our long time friend Charlene, who's got her hand up. I'd love to hear from you, darling.
Oh, I just wanted to say, of course, my heart is with you all today. It's great to see a lot of faces I haven't seen in a while. And I just wanted to mention, Robert Rodriguez actually came out to the memorial one year. I remember he showed up on a Harley and went out, talked to him for a second, asked, of course, why he was there on that particular day. And he said he was honoring, the agents, and the children had really been on his mind a lot lately. That might be one of the agents that you guys are going to be able to get hold of that may at this point, because he was so disgusted early on and actually brave enough to show up at a memorial, that he may be willing to speak with Ryan or Thibodeaux or just whoever. Something to keep in mind. And he's a key player in this whole thing. Of course, he's the one who said to call it all off. Yeah. Everyone ignored him, and he actually went after them during those, that hearing, saying you about ruined a great agency with your lies. And so he might be somebody that would be willing to speak anyway. You might want to keep that in mind.
He sued him too. Millions of dollars he won for them throwing him under the bus like that.
Well, then maybe he won't be able to speak about it for, a disclosure maybe that he had to sign as part of that, but it's worth finding out at least.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you. We're trying to leave no stone unturned.
Well, one thing I would add on your point, David, about agents, other ATF agents who weren't there, but who were very critical that the event ever took place. And one of those, he's become fairly well known. Vince Cefalu is his name. He's one of the ATF agents who also was basically persecuted by the agency because he became a whistleblower. And I've heard him in a very recent interview talk about that this should never have gone down, that the whole thing was just, it was just a really bad joke to begin with that turned into a horrible tragedy. Never should have happened.
Did you get that name, Ryan?
Yeah, Vince Cefalu. It's Cefalu, I think.
Great, thank you.
Find him on YouTube. You'll find videos of him being interviewed very recently.
Oh, excellent. Wow, that's great.
I will add one just quickly. He is not he definitely defends the agents in terms of what happened that day once the gunfiring began. He's not necessarily going to be our friend on all of that. He considers the agents were fired upon, and he doesn't support that. But
yeah,
he has a view. Yeah.
We have spoken with a couple of ATF agents, although not on camera, who kind of had a similar opinion.
I think, a lot of that depends on where you are, who you were next to. I mean, there are so many factors. The people that were near the dogs all say that, well, many of them, not all, say that they thought the first shots were fired at the dogs. There was one agent who retracted his statement, but his early statement was that he went to reach for his firearm and it went off, and he believed that was the first shot fired. If you're at the back of the building, it was the helicopter. So it very much appears that it's where you were at the time.
Hey, David,
I don't want to forget, I have Stuart.
Yeah, let me say something. I
Sure.
was in Waco in the courtroom in 2000 when one ATF agent who was assigned to the dog team took the stand and testified that the first shots were fired were from his dog team. So the first shots that were fired were from the dog team.
Yeah, that makes sense too. That's the
Yeah.
first thing.
Dogs are right outside my window.
Mhm.
If I remember anything about that day, it's that I remember hearing those dogs whimper and whelp before I heard anything else.
It's terrible. I don't want to forget, Kristin cannot raise her hand because she's a monitor here, so she wanted to say a few things. So let's get to Kristin before I forget, as I'm inclined to at my age.
I want to thank Kristin for setting this up this year. I appreciate
Very
that.
much so. Couldn't have done it without her.
She is really good at pull together.
Thank you, guys.
She's organized.
I just wanted to give a personal thanks to Livingston Fagan, who I know isn't with us today, but he has been giving us studies each week. And I know Allie is involved in that group and a few others. And we appreciate that so much, everything that he's taught us and shown us. And he also posts on Facebook. So anyone that can't be a part of that group, you can go read his Facebook, and he has a lot of good information about Waco and just the Seven Seals in general. And I wanted to give a personal thanks to Clive, who's also, taught us a lot and is always there for us. And also David Thibodeaux, because he's taught us a lot as well. And obviously he's there for me every day. So I just wanted to give that personal thanks to you guys.
Steve Wraith has had his hand up for a long time. So let's get to Steve up there.
Yeah, thank you. I didn't want to appear like I was just somebody who was sitting in here snooping, and obviously I'm on the other side of the Atlantic. So first of all, I just want to thank Livingston and David for really allowing me to learn a lot more about, this travesty really that you people have had to go through. I'm obviously from the UK, in a place called Newcastle in the northeast. And I was a young teenager watching, the whole event unfold on television, and it really, really touched me. Since then, I've gone on to make documentaries and write books, not about your situation, but about miscarriages of justice in the UK and how the police and the law enforcement officers in the UK fit people up and, decide to set people up for, sometimes for political reasons, other times for things which, which suit the particular local government. And I think your story resonated with me on this side of the Atlantic so much that I've always followed it with interest. And to the extent where I reached out to Livingston when Facebook became a thing, and I spoke to Livingston many times and listened to what he had to say. I read the books that he produced. Then reached out to David as well. Thoroughly, enjoyed David's book as well. And I just wanted to say thank you for allowing me to be part of this. I've obviously been fully aware of the memorials that have taken place. I've seen some of them covered on YouTube and watched some of the news footage, but just really wanted to take part tonight because I could. I want to thank Kristin for sending me the link, but really just thank you guys, and just to let you know that my heart is with you on this day in particular, but also that you have support on this side of the Atlantic. And if I can be any help with you, Ryan, once you get your thing, to the next level, certainly on this side of the Atlantic, I'm more than happy to help you, with getting in touch with various organizations, etc. But I won't take up any more of the time. I know it's precious to everybody, and thanks. In particular, Scott, I found your story really touching. I didn't know who you were. Nice to put a name to the face. And thank you all for listening to me just now.
Thank you, Stephen. We've talked about it on the phone, and we'll go over to England at some point. I'm definitely looking.
Yeah, we'll get you here, David. I'm looking forward to that. I mean, I think I remember saying about COVID to you that, it'll be over in a few weeks. How wrong was I, David? How wrong was I?
Weren't we all? Yeah, this keeps
1 year later, 15 days to stop the spread.
It's like the Energizer Bunny. It just keeps going and going and going, doesn't it? Aaron Gentry, you've had your hand up for quite some time. Are you still there?
Hi, David. Yeah, I'm here. So I just wanted to tell you guys, thank you so much for your transparency and for sharing the stories and allowing the lives lost to still live on through you guys. And we will never forget what happened. And I just thank you all, and my heart goes out to you all. My prayers go out to you guys, and much love, and just know that you guys have support all over.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Our friend Doug.
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yep.
All right, awesome. Hey, I just wanted to really quickly, I just wanted to say thank you all so very much for all the things that you do, for all the things that you, for not only keeping the legacy of the lost alive, but you also help to ensure a future of truths that I do believe is attainable in our lifetime for the survivors and their families. Clive, David, Kevin, Scott, Heather, Ron, Catherine, Kristin, and Ed Hart. I've gotten to know you guys over the last couple of years, and I think you're just amazing people, and I'm so honored to be able to call you guys friends. I love you guys a lot. And again, just thank you everybody for being this call. You all are amazing. So I just wanted to say cheers. Thank you.
Thank you so much, buddy. I really appreciate that.
Good to see you, bud.
Yeah. Before I get to Allie, I know that Eddie wanted to say something else before, and I'll forget because his hand's not up. I don't think he can do it for some reason. Eddie, are you still there?
Yeah, no, I'm still here. No, I said what I wanted to say. It was just about David Chipman. Just don't, everyone, you saw the photos and you saw all those children. So my whole thing was,
for those who don't
reach
know,
out to your senator.
For those who don't know, oh, you already said it. You already talked. Okay, got you.
Yeah.
Definitely
Yeah,
be on the phone and emailing.
Yeah.
Chris, yeah, and also just real quick, if you look at your state senator, some of them might have offices that are really, really close to where you live. Don't be afraid to stop into a senator's office. Actually going in person, that's going to have more of an impact.
Oh, awesome idea. Thanks.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Allie?
So
how you doing, Allie?
That was rough. That was rough. And it made it more rough just knowing that you all had to endure that for 50, not just 51 days, but the aftermath of that. And
28 years?
Oh, can you hear me? Am I still muted?
No, you're good. I said for the last 28 years, you mean? Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And some of us here from our little tribe chat or whatever that I was talking about in the beginning, like some of us have never been to this before, and some of us just know what happened from that documentary that aired on Netflix, and we were never taught this in school. We had no idea what even happened, and just being here today, like it made it so much more real. And I think I'm not alone when I say that we were already inspired to continue that that sense of family and community and love, but after today, yeah, like that's never going away.
Right.
It does feel like it's a special group of people that have been assembled here for this.
True.
It does that way every year, and hopefully next year we can do it in person.
Oh, that would be great.
Weird. To go on. Ryan Azevedo, my friend, has his hand up.
I just wanted to mention, I touched on it a little bit earlier, but I just really wanted to acknowledge the people that have dedicated so much time, as everyone has, but like Kathy Wessinger, like Stuart Wright, Dr. Tabor, of course, Phil Arnold. And I mean, it's one thing to make a documentary, but these guys have spent years, literally years, dissecting evidence and capturing statements and giving a voice to people that didn't have the opportunity to speak for themselves. So I just, I'm in awe of even being part of this group to contribute my little way. But the amount of work and effort and love and care and passion that they've put into it. I just wanted to acknowledge that.
Really, no, thank you, Ryan, because all those people are such an inspiration to all of us, and every one of us. Like Stuart Wright, your works to me just so I can't. It's just, what you have done is so important, and it's legitimized many things that I knew and didn't know how to express. I owe you that. Catherine Wessinger being there every year to help get this memorial going, and working with Clive, and I mean, your help, the help of you individuals is so, you just have no idea what it means to us, especially after being, so vilified for so many years. To have anyone at the beginning, it was only gun clubs in the right wing that even wanted to listen to what I had to say. No one even acknowledged, or we were so demonized that nobody cared. They didn't want to hear. We were just weird cultists that got what we deserved, period, in the story. So it's taken many years and many great people working together to bring all this about. James Tabor and Phil Arnold especially, both of them. I mean, being there from the beginning, to wanting to talk to David, wanting to speak his language, which is what the FBI failed to understand, is that's all David wanted, was to be heard, and to know that he understands the scripture in a very deep and special way. And there's got to be other people that can understand it on the level that he could take it further with. He took it as far as he could with us as individuals.
I'm gonna continue on that.
Getting Phil Arnold and James Tabor in a room with David would have been my dream gig. I wish when they say, who would you like to go back in time and hang out with? Einstein, or I would like to give up mine and have David meet with James Tabor and Phil Arnold. And when I met James Tabor after everything that I had been through, and the guy walked in the room, I swear to God, there was a light around him. It was a halo around that man. And I just knew that this was a person who was just, I was meant to meet, and ended up going to Israel with him. And it was one of the most incredible experiences of my life. And I've said it before, James, I know you had, I hope he's still here. He might not still be here. But anyway, I'll say it to all of you. I told Catherine, I think I've told Stuart, I know I told Phil, James had some personal things happen to him, some tragedies in his life. And I just said, I can't make a documentary without James Tabor. Can't do it. So I'm very excited to have him on board and want to speak with us. It's just very exciting for me. All right, I'm done.
Awesome.
Yeah, let me just continue on that with you. As another survivor, I definitely concur with Tibbs on how the progression, with a little bit different perspective. Tibbs got thrown into the spotlight right from the get-go, people wanting to get his story and stuff like that. So he knows what it was like in the public atmosphere, so to speak, right at the beginning. I was a young child who was then sheltered from the story, kept away from it and whatnot until I was about 25. But that doesn't mean I wasn't completely oblivious to the story and where it was popping up here and there throughout media and this and that, the few times that it did. And one of the things that I want to thank everybody here today, and anyone who's ever showed support and a desire to seek out the truth, is that I feel a lot better about the whole story today than I did 10, 15, 20 years ago. I remember getting little snippets. You'd overhear people around you make comment if it got brought up in conversation or something. And like Thibodeaux said, it was always very negative. Way back in the day, it was always negative. We could literally perceive the perspective that these people had, the public had, of what had happened there and the people that we were. And it wasn't until, I got back involved that I started to see, wow, there are actually people out there who realize that there were lies and they want to seek out the truth. So that's made it a lot easier for me to get back involved. One of the reasons why I stayed away was because I know how the media is. I don't want to toot my horn, but I think I've known that since I was 10 about the media's propaganda and lies. That's why I stayed away from it. So you guys showing a desire to know the truth and wanting to hear our story is part of what makes it easier to actually do so. So thank you guys for that.
Thank you, Scott.
Cool.
That was great.
Glad you're out there, Scott.
Jason?
Sweet. Hopefully you guys can hear me.
Yeah.
David, I want to ask you first before I say anything. Do you think it's appropriate for me to mention what it is I'm wanting to do?
I don't see why not.
Okay. All right, good. So I started talking to David about a year ago, I guess. I've become really interested in all of this, as I'd say every one of you have as well. I started trying to find photographs of inside of Mount Carmel, just due to interest alone. And there are very few, as I'm sure everyone is aware. I have a little bit of a background in 3D art and video game level design. I'm not a professional, but I do have some background in it. I don't wish to create a video game, but I would very much like to create a 3D virtual representation of Mount Carmel, as I told David before. And when I initially contacted him, I just wanted to do the structure. I was really interested in recreating the structure at an extremely high level of accuracy, authentic. I can't even say that word, but you know what I'm saying. But anyway, that grew, and now I've gotten to where I want to do the entire property, all of it, as it was that morning in 1993 before the ATF violated y'all's private property. At first, I thought this was something I was going to have to raise money for. I don't think I will. I think I'm going to be able to get this thing done for free. There's just some information I'm going to need in terms of details on inside. And so if anyone has any information about the interior of Mount Carmel, example, if there was a room that didn't have a light switch cover, that's something I'd like to have there. If you can think, well, there was a nail on the wall here that was bent over, I'd like to put that there. I want it to be as authentic as it possibly can be for historical purposes. I think this is a great time to have something like this out. I believe it'll bring more attention to it, and thereby bringing more attention to the circumstances we're currently under in the nation. Sorry for wasting y'all's time.
No, that's not a waste of time. Let's try to arrange a Zoom call with me, Scott, Heather, Clive, anyone who I'm missing that.
I think you should be in touch with Matt Whitmer.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
Because
something you need to get us all sitting down
and-
brainstorming.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also go to Matt's website, stormbound.org, and because he's done so much to document the property, and he created a model of the property, and he
I have seen that.
Yeah. Okay. So Matt's here.
Yeah,
That's
that would
excellent.
be that's a great idea, Jason. I think it's a great idea.
I would love to get with you on it. I'd like to make this something that's actually VR, capable, so we can actually get in there and look around as you would be able to had you been there. I'd like to have it to where certain soundscapes will play as you enter certain rooms, i.e. if we have recorded audio of people's voices who are no longer with us, maybe that could play faintly in the background. I want to make it as interactive as possible, and I don't want to demonstrate the attack in any way. I think that we've seen enough of that through the media and we're all aware of it. I want to demonstrate more like a frozen in time capsule of what it would have been like there just before they ruined everything by invading the property.
That's beautiful.
Absolutely.
Hey, Matt, you've been very quiet.
Sorry. No, I think that's a great idea, Jason. And there's other examples of that, and several of the documentaries have actually done initial computer, schematics of the building,
Yes.
but not to the level that you want to do to make it sort of like an experience. I think that's really valuable.
As just a method of example, and I'll be quiet, I don't want to take up any more time than necessary. If anyone's interested in the level of detail that can be attained here, there is a project based off of the ship, the Titanic. They're currently making this in the same engine I wish to have this experience built in. It is extremely graphic. If you're interested to see just how graphic that this representation could be, take a look at Titanic Honor and Glory. Just look at some of the pictures of some of the work they've done. We can achieve every bit of that detail with Mount Carmel. Just letting you know.
I saw that. That's amazing. Actually, it's like the plates and all the banisters and the tapestries that were on the wall, for example. Very incredible work that is.
So yes, Matt, if you don't mind, I'd like to get your contact information before this is all said and done, so I can get with you about maybe trying to get this ball rolling.
And then, yeah, if you guys want to set up a Zoom call, I'll try to get as many survivors as we can on it.
I'll send you a message, Dave.
Right. Dustin Parson, got his hand up?
Hi, David.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hey. Thank you very much today, and thanks, Kristin, for providing me with the invite to join. I am here today as someone who thought I knew this story, and then as part of, I guess, a growing process, maybe a coming of age thing, this became one of the prime examples for me in life. Sorry about that. About how things just aren't always, even as you're taught, even in school. And so getting to know David and getting the chance to interview David has been one of the most profound and enlightening experiences of my life. And I just wanted to say thanks for being approachable. You know, thanks for saying yes when people do reach out with that curiosity, you know, and want to know more. And myself, and I'm sure everyone else would know that it's obviously hard. I don't even understand how you guys can reflect upon this like today with the strength that you do. So just thank you for being available, and thank you for speaking to it, and keep doing it, because I do believe that there's a truth coming out here, and it's important. I'm from Eastern Canada, and I would encourage people maybe who are just interested in connecting some dots to check out the Gustafson Lake standoff, which happened around a similar time frame with a lot of similar characteristics. Massive government raid, dogs shot first, crazy scary parallels. And I'm just starting to try to understand this now and connect all this together. But yeah, thank you guys. Thank you for your strength. Yeah, love you.
Thanks, Dustin. That was amazing. Actually, thank you so much. Wow, that was very powerful. I got a question for the scholars. And it's something I've been thinking about for some time. And Dustin just kind of triggered that with what he said, especially about the group up in Canada. And when I reflect on things in the past, people always want to say, why did Mount Carmel happen? Why did they come in shooting? Why did the government do what they did? Why did the ATF come in the way they did? And I always say there's all kinds of political reasons. There's reasons they'll give you on paper, but there's more of a spiritual reason. And I liken it to what the American Army did with the American Indians, and what the Spaniards did in Southern America, in Mexico, and over and over and over again, when the American Indians were obtaining power by doing the ghost dance, the federal authorities said, you can't do the ghost dance anymore, and then gave them blankets with smallpox and introduced them to alcohol. In other words, it always seems like there's something about the Western way of thinking that tries to drive tribal or truly spiritual people away from their faith. And do you think that deep down they're really scared of the spirit of a movement, of God?
Stuart, I think that's your question.
Yeah, I'll speak to that. So in 2016, my good friend and colleague Susan Palmer and I published a book called Storming Zion, Government Raids on Religious Communities. And we spent 5 to 6 years. I mean, I went back and I was asking some of these same questions, and I wondered if something like Waco was just an anomaly. And once we started collecting data on government raids on really new religious communities for the most part, we started to see a pattern. And in the book, we have collected data, I believe, on 119 government raids on communities covering 6 decades, going back to right after World War II. And so we talk about these patterns, and it follows a pattern of what we talk about as kind of a militarization of law enforcement, where police, beginning in the 1980s, began to, with the with the war on drugs started to mesh with the military. And so you had coordinated efforts by the military, first on the borders of the United States, but also inward as we moved inland with domestic police using more military-like tactics or strategies to enforce drug laws, and then that spilled over into gun laws and gun violations and targeting gun groups in the later 80s and early 90s. But this is really happening all over the world. So we've continued to cultivate this data set looking at government raids, and we're now up to 161 government raids in 17 countries targeting new religious movements. And I think what Holly said earlier, when she talked about the more aggressive stance of anti-cult organizations supporting efforts and aligning themselves with police and being able to really co-opt the narrative about the threat of so-called cults or marginal or new religions, so that you have this exaggerated threat perception that goes out to the public and is adopted by institutional authorities, whereas we know that these threats are greatly exaggerated, if not completely manufactured by, shall we say, oppositional forces. So you can put a spiritual explanation on that if you want, but I think that you have to look at where the energy comes from, and who are the organizers, and what kind of formal role they play in consulting and advising and being listened to by law enforcement.
It's fascinating. I didn't realize you'd put that. I didn't realize there were that many groups that have been attacked by the government. That's really an eye-opener.
David, they don't all end like Waco, but
that's good.
Yeah, yeah.
Good for them.
But we have had some where the groups were basically decimated and dissolved as a result, or driven underground, or sometimes driven out of the country, depending on what country you're looking at. France has been particularly prominent in this role. They have very strong anti-cult laws and organizations that are in bed with the government.
If I can jump in here and follow up what Stuart's saying, I think his list of raids is probably short. It doesn't cover them all. When you add in China right now, the number grows significantly, and in China, you have almost the reverse situation. Here we had anti-cult movement that influenced government action. There you had government setting up anti-cult groups and using them to front for their activity. And you've got a massive repression going on now against what we would call new religions, simply because they exist. There's no particular reason to shut them down or to raid their facilities, arrest their members, but that's what's happening. And so I think if you had Chinese data and could add into it, it might double your list.
Oh yeah, I concur with Gordon there. We specifically targeted Western democratic countries that already had laws on the book guaranteeing religious freedom, and we were trying to make a point that that religious freedom seems to only apply to mainstream religions and not new religions. And so they exclude new religions by simply calling them cults, and then they can say, well, these are pseudo religions, they're not real religions. So I thought the irony or the paradox of claiming religious freedom in these democratic countries when in fact they were engaging in all kinds of raids for work of storytelling, telling that story anyway. Yeah, I've got colleagues in Russia that would say the same thing. You're talking about hundreds, perhaps thousands of raids in Russia, and probably that many in China too. And I would encourage anybody who wants to take on that study to do so.
Well, I think it's worth noting that one of the big stories, or a number of the big stories that have come out during the pandemic, is the persecution of churches. Not only in the United States, but in Canada. And I can't even speak to the rest of the world, but there's some major stories about how local governments in particular, or state governments, have really come down on churches and try to enforce rules on them far more punitive than they do on regular businesses.
I said something recently about the pandemic, and they were talking about a giant church in South Korea, and basically, I was a huge spreading device for COVID, and the reason that South Korea was they were just really good at isolating, finding everyone who was there, and then isolating the rest of the country, and that's why it didn't spread. It spread much less quickly in South Korea. They were just on it very quickly. But it just seems like, you know, these mega churches can be huge spreaders of something like a virus. But I have just always pondered that the spiritual, well, to me, it was the spiritual background of Mount Carmel, what happened there, and it just seemed like these weren't just ATF guys there to do a job. They were there for blood. They were angry. They wanted to get in, and the look on their faces when they didn't make it in that building on February 28th, and they walked away, and they peppered the hill as they walked away. The look on their faces was so bewildered. They couldn't believe that they didn't win.
Yeah.
They were just so humbled that they couldn't get in, and they just looked confused. They didn't expect to not go and win that day. And I wish I had a picture of the look on the faces of the ATF guys as they were walking by after the ceasefire was first negotiated, because to me, it just showed what arrogancy and what kind of pride that they had to have that response when they didn't win. They weren't expecting it.